The checkpoint smelled like asphalt and stale coffee. Officer Warren Briggs tightened his grip on the flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness of Route 9 like a blade. He had been doing this for 17 years, long enough to know trouble when he saw it. And tonight, trouble wore a hood and drove a rusted Civic with a busted taillight. He stepped forward, boots crunching gravel, and aimed the light straight through the driver's window. License and registration. The woman inside didn't move fast enough. That was the first problem. I said license and registration. His voice carried the weight of a man who expected obedience, who had built a career on it. When she reached toward the glove compartment, his hand went to his belt. Slowly. She was young, mid-20s maybe, with tired eyes and box braids pulled back from her face. Her hands moved with deliberate care, fingers steady as she retrieved the documents. But there was something in her posture, something that made his jaw tighten. She didn't look scared. She looked like she was deciding something. Kendra Malik, he read aloud, shining the light on her license. This address current? Yes, sir. Step out of the vehicle. Is there a problem, officer? I'll ask the questions. Step out. Kendra's fingers curled around the steering wheel, knuckles pressing white against brown skin. She had been driving for 6 hours straight, trying to make it back to her grandmother's house in Virginia before midnight. The last thing she needed was this. The last thing she could afford was this. But she knew the script. She had lived it before. She opened the door and stepped onto the shoulder of the highway, gravel shifting beneath her sneakers. The night air was thick with humidity, pressing against her skin like a warning. 2 other officers stood near the cruiser, watching but not approaching. One of them, younger, looked uncomfortable. The other leaned against the hood, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Where you coming from? Briggs asked, circling her like she was evidence. North Carolina. Visiting family. That's so. He glanced back at her car, at the duffel bag visible in the back seat. What's in the bag? Clothes. Personal items. Mind if I take a look? It wasn't a question. It never was. I do mind, actually, Kendra said, her voice even. You pulled me over for a taillight. You've seen my license. I haven't broken any laws. Briggs stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the coffee on his breath, see the small red veins mapping the whites of his eyes. You telling me how to do my job? I'm telling you my rights. Something shifted in his expression. It was subtle, a tightening around the mouth, a narrowing of the eyes. She had seen it before. It was the look of a man who didn't like being challenged, especially not by someone who looked like her. Turn around. Hands on the vehicle. Officer, I haven't done anything wrong. Turn around. Kendra's breath caught in her chest. She thought about her grandmother, waiting up in that small house with the porch light on. She thought about the phone call she would have to make if this went the way it always went. She thought about the last time someone in a uniform had put their hands on her, the last time she had been told to comply, or else. But that was different. That was war. This was supposed to be home. She turned slowly, placing her palms flat against the roof of the Civic. The metal was still warm from the drive. Briggs moved behind her, his presence a pressure she could feel even without touch. He wasn't searching. He was establishing dominance. You got a problem with authority? He asked, his voice low, almost conversational. No, sir. Then why you making this difficult? I'm not. His hand came down on her shoulder, spinning her around faster than she expected. Before she could process it, his fingers were at her throat, not squeezing but resting there, a promise of what he could do. His face was inches from hers, breath hot and laced with something bitter. Let me tell you something, he said, each word deliberate. I don't care where you think you're going or what you think you know. Out here, I'm the law. You understand me. Kendra's body went still. Every muscle locked into place, not from fear, but from something deeper, something trained. Her eyes met his, and in that moment, she made a choice. Not the one he expected. Take your hand off me. Her voice was quiet, almost calm, but there was steel in it, the kind that didn't bend. Briggs smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Or what? The younger officer took a step forward, uncertainty written across his face. Briggs, maybe we should just stay back, Holloway. Briggs didn't take his eyes off Kendra. This one needs to learn some respect. Kendra's pulse was steady, her breathing controlled. She had been in worse situations, had faced worse men. But those men had been enemies. This one wore a badge. Last chance, she said. Briggs's grip tightened, just enough to make his point. And then Kendra moved. It happened in less than 2 seconds. Her left hand came up, trapping his wrist against her shoulder. Her right hand struck the inside of his elbow, collapsing his arm. She twisted, using his own momentum to break his grip, and before he could react, she had rotated his arm into a joint lock that sent him stumbling backward, gasping. She didn't follow through, didn't press the advantage. Just stepped back, hands raised, breathing steady. "I asked you to take your hand off me," she said. Briggs stared at her, shock and rage warring across his face. The other 2 officers were moving now, hands going to their belts, but they stopped when Holloway held up a hand. "Everyone calm down," Holloway said, his voice tight. Briggs straightened, rubbing his arm, eyes locked on Kendra with something close to hatred. "You just assaulted an officer. You grabbed my throat. There are 2 witnesses. You resisted arrest. You never said I was under arrest. You pulled me over for a traffic violation." The standoff stretched between them, charged and dangerous. Kendra kept her hands visible, her posture non-threatening, but her eyes never left Briggs. She knew what was coming next. She had always known. "Cuff her," Briggs said, his voice cold. "Assaulting an officer. Resisting arrest. We'll add whatever else we find in that car." Holloway hesitated. "Briggs, I don't think. That's an order." Kendra felt the metal close around her wrists, cold and familiar. She didn't fight it. Fighting would only make it worse. But as they led her toward the cruiser, past her car with its busted taillight and her duffel bag in the back seat, she thought about the medals in that bag. The commendations. The discharge papers that said honorable next to her name. She thought about the 8 months she had spent in Kandahar, leading a team through territory so hostile that every breath felt borrowed. She thought about the lives she had saved, the missions she had completed, the enemies she had faced with nothing but her training and her will to survive. And she thought about how none of that mattered here, on this dark stretch of highway, with this man's hand still burning like a brand on her throat. Briggs watched them load her into the cruiser, satisfaction settling over his features. He had dealt with her type before. Thought they were special. Thought the rules didn't apply. He would teach her different. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Kendra Malik had spent 3 years teaching hand-to-hand combat to Marine recruits. That she held a black belt in 2 disciplines and had been trained by some of the best tactical instructors in the military. That she had been honorably discharged just 4 months ago after serving her country with distinction. And that she had a lawyer on speed dial who specialized in cases exactly like this. But more than that, what Warren Briggs didn't know was that the dashboard camera in Kendra's car had been recording everything. Every word, every gesture, every second of his hand on her throat. By morning, his life as he knew it would be over. But tonight, as the cruiser pulled away from the checkpoint and Kendra sat in the back seat with her wrists bound and her jaw set, all she could think about was her grandmother's porch light, still burning in the darkness, waiting for her to come home. What would you do if you were in Kendra's position? Would you have stayed silent or stood your ground? Drop your thoughts below. The holding cell smelled like disinfectant and desperation. Kendra sat on the metal bench, hands folded in her lap, spine straight despite the hours that had passed. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, a constant drone that seemed designed to break down anyone unlucky enough to end up here. She had been processed 2 hours ago. Fingerprints. Mugshot. The whole degrading ritual performed by officers who wouldn't meet her eyes. They knew something was off about this arrest, she could tell. But nobody was willing to say it out loud. Through the bars, she could see the station's main floor. Officers moving between desks, phones ringing, the everyday machinery of law enforcement grinding forward. Normal people having a normal night, while she sat in a cage for the crime of defending herself. Her throat still felt tender where Briggs had grabbed her. Not bruised, not quite, but marked. The memory of his fingers pressing into her skin played on repeat, triggering responses she thought she had left overseas. Her body wanted to fight. Her training wanted to engage. But her mind knew better. This wasn't a battlefield. This was something more insidious. Malik. A female officer appeared at the bars, keys jangling. She was older, maybe 50, with gray streaking through her dark hair and lines around her eyes that suggested she had seen too much. You made your phone call. Yes, ma'am. Lawyer coming. She's on her way. The officer, whose name tag read Chun, studied her for a long moment. That thing with Briggs. That true? Kendra met her gaze. Which part? The part where you flipped him like a pancake. Despite everything, Kendra almost smiled. I didn't flip him. I applied a basic joint manipulation to remove his hand from my throat. Chin's eyebrows rose. Military. Marines. 3 years. Figures. Chin glanced over her shoulder, then back. Look, I'm not supposed to say this, but Briggs has a history. This isn't the first complaint. Probably won't be the last. Then why is he still wearing a badge? Chin's expression hardened. Same reason they all are. Brotherhood. Loyalty. All that blue line garbage. She paused. But between you and me, I hope your lawyer buries him. Before Kendra could respond, Chin walked away, leaving her alone again with the buzzing lights and the cold bench and the weight of everything that had happened. She closed her eyes and let herself drift back. Not to tonight, but to 3 years ago, to the moment that had changed everything. The convoy had hit the IED at 0600 hours. Kendra had been in the second vehicle, far enough back to avoid the initial blast, but close enough to see the flames. She remembered the ringing in her ears, the way time seemed to slow as training took over. She had been the first one out, moving toward the burning wreckage while others were still processing what had happened. 2 soldiers trapped inside. Fire spreading. Ammunition cooking off. She had pulled them both out, had dragged them to safety while rounds exploded like firecrackers around her. Had stayed calm while everything burned. Had done what needed to be done because that was who she was. The medal they gave her later said valor. But what she remembered most was the weight of those bodies in her arms, the responsibility of other people's lives resting on her choices. The sound of footsteps pulled her back to the present. Warren Briggs stood outside her cell, arms crossed, that same satisfied expression on his face. He had changed into a fresh uniform, combed his hair. Looked like he was getting ready to go home. Comfortable, he asked. Kendra didn't answer. You know what your problem is? He stepped closer to the bars. You think because you put on a uniform and played soldier, that makes you special. Makes you better than people like me. I don't think I'm better than anyone. Sure you do. I can see it in your eyes. That superior attitude. That disrespect. His voice dropped lower. But out here, your military service doesn't mean a damn thing. Out here, you're just another. Another what? Kendra stood, slowly, deliberately. Go ahead. Say it. Briggs's jaw worked. Whatever word he was holding back stayed trapped behind his teeth, but it was there in his eyes, in the curl of his lip. They both knew what he meant. Assaulting an officer is serious, he said instead. You're looking at real time. And that's just the start. I'm going to make sure every department in this state knows your name. Make sure you can't get so much as a parking ticket without someone remembering what you did. What I did was defend myself from an unlawful assault. That's not how the report reads. Then the report is a lie. Briggs smiled. Your word against mine. Against all of ours. How you think that's going to play out? The door to the station opened, and a woman walked in. She was tall, black, dressed in a sharp navy suit despite the late hour. Her heels clicked against the linoleum with the confidence of someone who owned every room she entered. She carried a leather briefcase in one hand and had the kind of expression that made seasoned officers nervous. Where's my client? Her voice carried across the station. Briggs turned, his smile faltering slightly. And you are? Simone Hawthorne. Attorney. I believe you're holding Kendra Malik on charges that won't survive the next hour, let alone a courtroom. Your client assaulted an officer. Your officer assaulted my client. Grabbed her by the throat during a traffic stop. Without cause, without justification, and with 2 witnesses present. Simone moved closer, her eyes sharp. I'm going to need to see the incident report. All footage from dash cams and body cameras. And the personnel files for everyone involved. That's not how this works. Actually, officer, that's exactly how this works. My client has rights, even if you forgot that when you decided to put your hands on her. Simone glanced past him to where Kendra stood. Are you injured? My throat. Where he grabbed me. Simone pulled out her phone, started taking photos through the bars. Have you been seen by medical? No, ma'am. Of course not. Simone turned back to Briggs. I'm requesting immediate medical evaluation for my client. And I'm putting you on notice that we will be filing a formal complaint, pursuing criminal charges for assault, and initiating a civil suit for violation of civil rights. Briggs's face had gone red. You can't. I can. I will. And unless you want to make this worse, I suggest you get whoever is in charge down here right now. For a moment, nobody moved. The entire station had gone quiet, officers watching this unfold with varying expressions of shock and concern. This wasn't how things usually went. Usually, the arrested stayed arrested. The complaints went nowhere. The system protected its own. But Simone Hawthorne wasn't usual. A door opened at the far end of the station, and a man in a captain's uniform emerged. He was in his 60s, white hair cut military short, face weathered by decades of hard decisions. His name tag read Morrison. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice tired. Simone turned to him. "Captain Morrison, I presume." "Simone Hawthorne, attorney for Kendra Malik. Your officer, Warren Briggs, assaulted my client during a routine traffic stop, grabbed her by the throat, threatened her, and then filed false charges when she defended herself." Morrison's eyes moved from Simone to Briggs to Kendra. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or resignation. "Briggs, my office. Now." "Captain, this woman. Now." Briggs shot one last look at Kendra, something dark and promising in his eyes, before following Morrison toward the back offices. The door closed behind them with a heavy click. Simone moved to the bars. "You okay?" "I am now," Kendra said. "Tell me everything. Start from when he pulled you over." Kendra recounted the entire encounter, her voice steady, her memory sharp. She had been trained to remember details under pressure, to catalog everything for after-action reports. That training served her now. When she finished, Simone was smiling. Not a happy smile. A predator's smile. "You said you have a dash cam?" "Yes. It was recording everything. And he doesn't know that? I never mentioned it." Simone laughed, short and sharp. "Girl, you just handed me this case on a silver platter." She pulled out her phone. "I'm calling someone at the DA's office. We're going to get you out of here tonight. And then we're going to make sure Officer Briggs never wears a badge again." Kendra felt something loosen in her chest. Not relief, not yet, but the first hint of it. He said my word wouldn't matter against his. He was wrong. Simone met her eyes. "I've been doing this for 15 years. I've seen cops like Briggs my whole career. They think the badge makes them untouchable. They think they can do whatever they want to whoever they want, and the system will protect them." She paused. "But every once in a while, we get one. One case where everything lines up, where the evidence is clear, and the victim fights back, and the whole ugly truth comes spilling out. And you think this is one of those cases?" "Honey, I know it is." Behind them, raised voices filtered through Morrison's office door. Briggs's voice, angry and defensive. Morrison's, cold and clipped. The conversation went on for several minutes before the door opened again. Morrison emerged alone. He looked older than he had before, the weight of whatever decision he had just made visible in the slope of his shoulders. He walked over to Chun. "Release her. Drop the charges." Chun didn't hesitate. She moved to the cell, keys already in hand. "Captain," Simone said, "we're still pursuing. I know what you're pursuing, Miss Hawthorne, and you won't get any pushback from me." He turned to face her fully. "Briggs is suspended pending investigation. This isn't the first complaint we've had about him. It's just the first one with this much evidence. So why was he still on the street?" Morrison's silence was answer enough. The cell door swung open, and Kendra stepped out. Her legs were stiff from sitting, but she walked with her head high, spine straight. Chun handed her back her belongings. "Wallet, keys, phone. Your car is still at the checkpoint," Morrison said. "We'll have it towed to the impound. You can pick it up tomorrow." "I'll drive her," Simone said. Morrison nodded. He looked at Kendra for a long moment, something unreadable in his eyes. "Thank you for your service." The words felt hollow, performative, like he was checking a box on a form. But Kendra nodded anyway, because what else could she do? As they walked toward the exit, Kendra saw Briggs standing in the doorway of Morrison's office. His face was a mask of barely controlled fury. His career wasn't over yet, but he knew it was coming. And he knew exactly who to blame. Their eyes met across the station floor. In that moment, Kendra saw something that made her blood run cold. Not anger. Not even hatred. Promise. This wasn't over. Not for him. Outside, the night air felt like freedom. Simone led her to a sleek black sedan parked in the visitor lot. They got in, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. "Where are we going?" Kendra asked finally. "My office. We need to document everything while it's fresh. Get photos of your neck. Get that dash cam footage secured. And then I'm taking you somewhere safe." "Safe?" Simone started the engine. "Briggs is suspended, not arrested. He knows you're the one who ended his career. Men like that, They don't just walk away. I can take care of myself. I know you can. I saw the report about what you did to his arm. Simone glanced at her. But there's taking care of yourself in the moment, and then there's what comes after. Trust me, I've seen this before. They drove in silence for a while, the lights of the station fading behind them. Kendra watched the dark roads pass by, thinking about everything that had happened. About Briggs's hand on her throat. About the cell. About the look in his eyes before they left. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. Why did you answer your phone at midnight for someone you never met? Simone smiled. Because 3 months ago, another young woman called me at 2 in the morning. Said she had been assaulted by a cop during a traffic stop. No witnesses. No evidence. Just her word against his. She paused. I took the case. We lost. And 2 weeks later, she tried to kill herself. Kendra felt her chest tighten. Did she? She survived. Barely. And I made myself a promise that night. Simone's hands gripped the wheel tighter. Never again. Every call I get like this, I answer. Every case like yours, I take. Because maybe I can't save everyone. But I can sure as hell try. They pulled into a parking garage downtown, and Simone led her to a small but well-appointed office on the 3rd floor. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of documentation. Photos of Kendra's throat, where faint red marks were already forming into bruises. Written statements. Timeline creation. And finally, the retrieval of the dashcam footage. Simone plugged the SD card into her computer, and they watched together. The footage was crystal clear. Audio perfect. Every word Briggs had said, every threat he had made, every second of his hand on Kendra's throat, recorded in high definition. When it ended, Simone sat back in her chair. This is it, she said quietly. This is the case that ends him. But as Kendra watched the footage loop back to the beginning, watched Briggs approach her car with that flashlight and that expression, she felt something twist in her stomach. She had won. The evidence was there. Justice would be served. So why did she feel like this was just the beginning? Have you ever had to stand up to someone in power? How did it turn out? Share your story below. Kendra spent the night at Simone's apartment. It was a small place in a secure building, the kind with a doorman and cameras and enough layers of protection that Simone insisted her clients use it when things got complicated. The couch was comfortable enough, but sleep came in fragments, broken by the sound of footsteps in the hallway that weren't really there and the phantom feeling of fingers on her throat. By 6 in the morning, she gave up and made coffee. Simone emerged from her bedroom an hour later, already dressed in another sharp suit, her hair pulled back in a tight bun. She found Kendra standing at the window, looking out at the city waking up below. Couldn't sleep? Simone asked. Not really. That's normal. The adrenaline takes a while to fade. Simone poured herself coffee, joined Kendra at the window. I've already forwarded the footage to the DA's office, the State Police Internal Affairs Division, and the local news stations. Kendra's head snapped around. The news. Public pressure is our friend here. Briggs and his department are going to want this to go away quietly. We're not going to let that happen. Simone sipped her coffee. By noon, this will be everywhere. By tonight, you'll probably be getting interview requests. I don't want to be on TV. I know. But sometimes that's what it takes. Simone's voice softened. Look, I get it. You're a private person. You did your service, came home, just want to live your life. But this isn't just about you anymore. It's about every other person Briggs has done this to. Every other person he would do this to if we don't stop him. Kendra knew she was right. But knowing it didn't make it easier. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, saw a text from her grandmother. Baby, where are you? I waited up all night. Are you okay? Guilt hit her like a physical thing. She had been so caught up in everything that she hadn't even thought to call. Hadn't wanted to worry her grandmother with the truth. She typed back, I'm fine, Gram. Had some car trouble. I'll be there today. I promise. It wasn't exactly a lie. Just not the whole truth. You should go see her, Simone said, reading her expression. Get out of the city for a while. Let me handle the legal side. What about Briggs? He's suspended. He can't touch you. You said yourself he might come after me. I said might. And I'll be monitoring the situation. Simone set down her coffee. But you can't put your life on hold because of what he might do. That's letting him win. Kendra wanted to argue, but she was too tired. And her grandmother was waiting. Had been waiting all night, probably sick with worry, even if she was too polite to say it. Okay, she said finally. But you call me if anything happens. The second anything happens. 2 hours later, Kendra was back at the impound lot, collecting her car. The officer processing the paperwork avoided eye contact, moved quickly, seemed eager for her to leave. Word had spread, apparently. She was no longer just another arrest. She was a problem. The drive to her grandmother's house took 3 hours. Kendra kept checking her rearview mirror, watching for cars that stayed too long, for patterns in the traffic. Old habits from convoys and hostile territory. She knew it was probably paranoia, but knowing didn't stop her from doing it. Her grandmother's house sat at the end of a quiet street in a neighborhood that had seen better days. The paint was peeling, the porch sagged slightly, but the garden was immaculate and the porch light still burned even in daylight. A beacon that said someone was home, someone was waiting. Kendra pulled into the driveway and sat for a moment, trying to decide what to tell her. The truth felt too heavy. But lies had never worked with Graham. The front door opened before she made it to the porch. Her grandmother stood there, small and sturdy in a floral house dress. Her silver hair pulled back in the same bun she had worn for as long as Kendra could remember. At 73, Lorraine Malik could still outwork people half her age and had opinions on everything from politics to pie crust. Kendra Lynn Malik, she said, hands on her hips. You want to tell me why the news is saying you got arrested? So much for breaking it gently. You saw the news? Baby, everyone saw the news. It's all over every channel. Video of some cop grabbing you. You flipping him like he weighs nothing. Lorraine's expression shifted from stern to concerned. Are you hurt? I'm okay, Graham. Don't you lie to me. Let me see. Kendra tilted her head back, let her grandmother examine her throat. The bruises had darkened overnight, finger-shaped marks that told their own story. Lorraine's hands were gentle as she touched the edges, but her eyes were hard. That man put his hands on you. Yes, ma'am. For driving while black. Basically. Lorraine was quiet for a long moment, her fingers still resting against Kendra's throat. When she spoke again, her voice was thick. I raised you to be strong, to fight back when you needed to. But Lord, baby, I'm so tired of you having to fight. I know. Your grandfather, he got stopped like this. Must have been 40 years ago now. Officer didn't like the way he looked at him. Beat him so bad he was in the hospital for a week. Lorraine dropped her hands. We filed a complaint. Nothing happened. Nobody cared. And I thought, I prayed, that by the time you were grown, things would be different. Some things are different. Not enough. Not nearly enough. Lorraine pulled her into a hug, fierce and tight. But I'm glad you fought back. I'm glad you didn't just take it. They went inside, and Kendra told her everything over coffee and the breakfast her grandmother insisted on making despite it being nearly noon. Lorraine listened without interrupting, her face growing more troubled with each detail. This lawyer, she said when Kendra finished. You trust her? I think so. She seems like she really cares. Good. Because you're going to need someone like that. Lorraine refilled both their cups. When this hits the news proper, it's going to get ugly. People are going to have opinions. Some will support you. Others will find every reason to tear you down. I know. Do you? Because it's one thing to know it in your head. It's another to live through it. Lorraine reached across the table, gripped her hand. They're going to dig through your life. Find every mistake you ever made. Every time you got in trouble. Every bad decision. Every friend who might say something sideways. They're going to try to make you the villain. I was a Marine. I served my country. And they'll find a way to twist that too. Say you were looking for a fight. Say you were trained to be violent. Say whatever they need to say to make that cop look like the victim. Lorraine's grip tightened. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you. Kendra felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had faced Taliban fighters, had walked through minefields, had dealt with situations where one wrong move meant death. But this was different. This was character assassination. This was a war fought with words and perceptions and a justice system that didn't always care about the truth. Her phone buzzed. A text from Simone. First interview request. Local ABC affiliate. Interested? She showed it to her grandmother. What are you going to do? Lorraine asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to tell the whole world what happened. But another part just wants to forget it and move on. Can you? Move on. Kendra thought about Briggs's face. About the promise in his eyes. About the way the system had protected him until it couldn't anymore. No, she admitted. I can't. Then you already know what you have to do. Before Kendra could respond, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Kendra Malik? Yes. This is Detective James Reeves with State Police Internal Affairs. I'm calling about the incident with Officer Warren Briggs. We'd like to interview you as part of our investigation. I've already given a statement to my lawyer. I understand, but we need an official statement for our records. And there are some questions about the incident that need clarification. Something in his tone made Kendra's defenses rise. What kind of questions? Well, there's some dispute about exactly what happened. Officer Briggs claims you became aggressive during the stop, that he only grabbed you after you attempted to strike him. That's a lie. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying we need to get both sides documented properly. Can you come down to the station this week? I'll have to check with my lawyer. Of course. But Ms. Malik, I want to be clear about something. We take allegations against our officers very seriously. But we also have to be thorough. Fair. That means investigating every aspect of what happened, including my background. A pause. Standard procedure. Kendra felt her jaw tighten. I was honorably discharged from the Marines 4 months ago. I have no criminal record. No history of violence outside of combat situations. There's nothing in my background that justifies what Officer Briggs did. I'm sure that's true. But we have to verify everything. You understand. She understood perfectly. They were already building the defense. Already looking for ways to make this her fault. I'll have my lawyer contact you, she said, and ended the call. Lorraine was watching her. What did they say? They want to interview me. Make sure I'm telling the truth. But you have the video. Doesn't matter. They're going to try to find something, anything. That makes me look bad. Kendra set her phone down harder than necessary. This is exactly what Simone said would happen. Then you need to be smarter than them. Stronger than them. I'm tired, Graham. I'm tired of having to be strong all the time. Tired of having to prove I'm not the bad guy just because of how I look. Kendra felt her voice crack slightly. I serve this country. I bled for it. And I still can't drive down a highway without some cop deciding I'm a threat. Lorraine came around the table, pulled her into another hug. I know, baby. I know. They stood like that for a long time. Grandmother and granddaughter. 2 women who had lived different versions of the same story. Outside, the afternoon sun beat down on the tired neighborhood. And somewhere, Warren Briggs sat in his house, suspended but not defeated, planning his next move. Because men like him always had a next move. Kendra's phone buzzed again. This time it was a news alert. She pulled it up, and her stomach dropped. Officer claims Marine veteran attacked him during routine traffic stop. The article went on to detail Briggs's version of events. How Kendra had been belligerent from the start. How she had threatened him. How he had only touched her in self-defense when she tried to strike him. How her military training made her a dangerous individual who overreacted to a simple traffic stop. There was no mention of his hand on her throat. No mention of the witnesses. No mention of the dash cam footage that proved every word he said was a lie. They're getting ahead of it, Lorraine said, reading over her shoulder. Controlling the narrative before you can. Kendra texted Simone. Did you see this? The response came back immediately. Yes. Don't respond. Don't engage. I'm handling it. But handling it didn't make the article disappear. Didn't stop it from being shared and commented on and taken as truth by people who had already decided what they believed. Kendra scrolled through the comments section against her better judgment. Most were exactly what she expected. Another entitled veteran thinking the rules don't apply to them. If she just complied, none of this would have happened. Military training doesn't give you the right to assault police officers. But scattered among the hate were other voices. I've been stopped by Briggs. He's been doing this for years. There's video. Why isn't the media showing the video? She defended herself from assault. That's not a crime. The support should have made her feel better. Instead, it just made everything feel more real. More public. More permanent. This wasn't going away. This was going to follow her for the rest of her life. Every job application. Every background check. Every time someone Googled her name, this would be there. Marine veteran who assaulted a police officer. Never mind the truth. Never mind the video. Never mind that she was the victim. The story was already being written, and she wasn't the one holding the pen. I need some air, she said, pulling away from her grandmother. Kendra, I'm fine. I just need to think. She walked out to the back porch, let the screen door slam behind her. The backyard was small but well maintained, her grandmother's garden taking up most of the space. Tomatoes and cucumbers and herbs, all thriving under Lorraine's careful attention. Kendra sat on the porch steps, her head in her hands, and let herself feel everything she had been holding back. The fear, the anger, the crushing weight of injustice. She had done everything right, served her country, followed the law, defended herself only when necessary. And it didn't matter. Because at the end of the day, Warren Briggs wore a badge, and she didn't. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Simone. "We need to talk. When can you come back to the city?" Kendra looked out at her grandmother's garden, at the life that was growing there despite the tired soil and the harsh sun and all the reasons it shouldn't thrive. And she made a decision. Tomorrow. I'm coming back tomorrow. And I'm doing that interview. Because if they were going to write her story, she was damn well going to make sure they got it right. The ABC studio was smaller than Kendra expected. She sat in a chair under hot lights, a microphone clipped to her collar, while technicians adjusted cameras and checked sound levels. Simone stood just off camera, arms crossed, watching everything with the intensity of a guardian angel who happened to have a law degree. The interviewer was a woman named Patricia Jennings, mid-40s, with the kind of polished appearance that came from years in front of cameras. She had kind eyes, but Kendra knew better than to trust that. Journalists had jobs to do, stories to tell, and those stories didn't always care about the people in them. "We'll start with some background questions," Patricia said, settling into her own chair. "Where you're from, your military service, what brought you to that highway that night? Then we'll get into the incident itself." "Sound good. Sounds fine. And you're comfortable with us showing portions of the dashcam footage?" Kendra glanced at Simone, who nodded. "Yes. Good. We're going to be fair here, Kendra. I promise you that." Patricia's expression softened. "I've seen the full video. What happened to you was wrong. But I need you to understand that once this airs, your life is going to change. People are going to have opinions. Some will support you. Others won't. Are you ready for that?" "I don't think anyone's ever ready for that," Kendra said. "But I'm here anyway." Patricia smiled. "Then let's begin." The interview lasted 40 minutes. Kendra told her story the same way she had told it to Simone, to the police, to her grandmother. The facts didn't change. The truth was the truth, no matter how many times she had to repeat it. But what surprised her was how emotional it became. She had planned to stay calm, professional, controlled. But when Patricia asked her what she felt when Briggs put his hand on her throat, something cracked open inside her chest. "I felt like I was back overseas," Kendra heard herself say. "Like I was in a situation where someone wanted to hurt me, and I had to decide whether to fight or die. Except this wasn't a war zone. This was supposed to be home. And the person threatening me was supposed to protect and serve. You served 3 years in the Marines. Did you ever think you'd come home and face something like this?" "No." Kendra's voice was quiet. "Over there, you know who the enemy is. You know the dangers. But here, I'm supposed to be safe. I'm supposed to have rights. And instead, I got stopped for a taillight and ended up with a man's hand around my throat." Patricia leaned forward slightly. "What do you want people to know about what happened?" Kendra thought about all the things she could say. About systemic racism. About abuse of power. About the countless others who had faced worse and never gotten justice. But what came out was simpler. More personal. "I want people to know that I'm not a criminal. I'm not a threat. I'm just someone who was trying to get home to her grandmother." She paused. "And I want Officer Briggs to understand that the badge doesn't give him the right to put his hands on people. That there are consequences. That eventually, someone was going to fight back. Do you regret defending yourself?" "No. Not even a little bit." After the interview wrapped, Simone drove her back to the apartment. They didn't talk much during the ride. Kendra felt drained, wrung out, like she had just finished a marathon she hadn't trained for. "You did good," Simone said finally. "Really good. It didn't feel good. It never does. But you told the truth. That's what matters." Simone pulled into the parking garage. "The interview airs tonight. I'm guessing by tomorrow morning, this is going to explode." "Great. Hey." Simone turned to look at her. "I know this is hard, but you're doing the right thing. You're standing up not just for yourself, but for everyone who couldn't." Kendra wanted to believe that. Wanted to think that her pain and exposure meant something bigger. But right now, all she felt was tired. They went upstairs, ordered takeout, and settled in to wait. The interview was scheduled to air at 8. By 7:30, Kendra's phone was already buzzing with texts from people who had heard about it. Friends from the service. Former neighbors. People she hadn't talked to in years, all suddenly interested in her story. She turned the phone off. At 8, they watched together. Seeing herself on screen was surreal. The woman in the interview looked calm, composed, nothing like the mess Kendra felt like inside. And when they showed the dash cam footage, even though she had seen it a dozen times by now, it still hit like a punch to the gut. Briggs approaching her car. The escalation. His hand on her throat. The way she defended herself with minimal force, just enough to break free. And then the arrest, the humiliation, all of it captured in crisp digital clarity. The footage didn't lie, couldn't lie. It was simply what happened, undeniable and raw. When it ended, Patricia's voice came back. Officer Warren Briggs has been suspended pending investigation. The State Police Internal Affairs Division is reviewing the case. We reached out to Officer Briggs for comment, but he declined to speak with us. Simone's phone rang before the segment even finished. She answered, listened, then smiled. That was the DA's office. They're opening a criminal investigation into Briggs. Assault charges pending. Kendra felt something shift in her chest. Not quite relief. Not yet. But something close to hope. Her own phone buzzed. She had turned it off, but apparently it had turned itself back on. A notification from social media. She opened it against her better judgment. The interview had been posted online. Already, it had thousands of views. Thousands of comments. She scrolled through them, watching public opinion form in real time. Most of the comments were supportive. People sharing their own stories of police abuse. People thanking her for speaking out. People demanding justice. But scattered throughout were the other voices. The ones calling her a liar. The ones saying she deserved what happened. The ones threatening violence if she didn't drop the charges. One comment in particular made her blood run cold. Better watch your back. Cops protect their own. You think this is over? It's just starting. She showed it to Simone. That's a threat, Simone said immediately. We need to report it. To who? The police? Simone's expression darkened. She understood the irony. I have a contact at the FBI. Civil Rights Division. Let me reach out. You think it's that serious? I think we don't take chances. Simone took a screenshot of the comment. You're staying here tonight. Tomorrow, we're getting you better security. I can't live like this forever. You won't have to. But right now, while tensions are high and people are angry, we play it safe. Kendra wanted to argue, but she was too tired. And deep down, she knew Simone was right. The interview had changed things. Made her visible. Made her a target. They ordered more food, tried to watch something mindless on TV, but neither of them could focus. Every time Kendra's phone buzzed, her heart rate spiked. Every time she heard footsteps in the hallway, her body tensed. This was what Briggs had done to her. Made her afraid in her own country. Made her hyper-vigilant in places that should feel safe. Around midnight, Simone's phone rang. She answered, listened, then her face went pale. A pause. Is he hurt? Another pause. Okay. Thank you for letting me know. She hung up and turned to Kendra. That was Captain Morrison. Someone threw a brick through his office window tonight. There was a note attached. What did it say? Simone hesitated. It said, back off the Briggs case or next time it's your house. Kendra felt her stomach drop. They're threatening him? They're threatening anyone who goes against Briggs. Simone sat down heavily. Morrison said he's not backing down. The investigation continues. But he wanted us to know that there are people who are very angry about this. Briggs's friends. Probably. The blue wall is real, Kendra. When you go after one cop, you go after all of them. At least, that's how they see it. Kendra stood, paced to the window, looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Warren Briggs sat in his house, suspended but not defeated. And somewhere out there, people who agreed with him, who believed he had done nothing wrong, were planning their next move. Maybe I should drop it, she said quietly. Just let it go. You know you can't do that. Why not? Morrison's getting threatened. You're probably in danger too. My grandmother, her voice caught. God. Simone, what if they go after my grandmother? Simone came to stand beside her. Then we protect her. We protect everyone who needs protecting. But we don't back down. Because if we do, Briggs wins. And the next person he stops, the next woman he puts his hands on, she won't have video. She won't have a lawyer. She won't have anyone fighting for her. So I have to be the sacrifice. You have to be the example. Simone's voice was gentle but firm. I know that's not fair. I know you didn't ask for this. But sometimes, that's how change happens. One person stands up. One person refuses to be silent. And suddenly, everyone else finds their voice too. Kendra thought about all the comments on the interview, all the people sharing their own stories, all the voices that had been quiet for so long, finally speaking up because she had spoken first. I'm scared, she admitted. Good. Fear means you're taking this seriously. Simone squeezed her shoulder. But don't let fear stop you. Let it make you careful. Let it make you smart. But don't let it win. They stood there for a while, two women at a window, looking out at a city that held both danger and possibility. Behind them, the TV droned on, still showing news coverage of the story. Kendra's face on every channel. Her name trending on social media. Her life becoming public property. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was her grandmother. Baby, I just saw the interview. I'm so proud of you. And don't worry about me. I've lived through worse than some angry cops. You do what you need to do. Kendra felt tears prick her eyes. Of course her grandmother wasn't worried. Lorraine Malik had lived through segregation, through Jim Crow, through decades of injustice. She had raised children in a world that didn't want them to succeed. And she had survived. If Graham could survive all that, Kendra could survive this. She texted back, "Love you, Graham. Stay safe. Always do. You too." Simone's phone buzzed. She checked it, then looked up with an odd expression. "What?" Kendra asked. "It's from Detective Reeves. Internal Affairs." Simone read the message. "He wants to meet with both of us. Tomorrow. Says he has information about Briggs that we need to hear." "What kind of information?" "He didn't say. Just that it's important." Simone looked troubled. "Could be good news. Could be a trap. Which do you think it is?" "With cops." "Could be both." They decided to meet Reeves at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown that Simone knew well. Public enough to be safe, private enough to talk. The meeting was set for 10 in the morning. Kendra spent the rest of the night on the couch, drifting in and out of sleep, her dreams full of checkpoints and hands on her throat and voices asking her to explain why she didn't just comply. When morning came, she felt like she hadn't slept at all. Simone made breakfast, strong coffee and toast, the kind of simple meal that felt like armor. They ate in silence, both preparing for whatever was coming next. At 9:30, they headed to the coffee shop. Simone drove, her eyes constantly checking mirrors, looking for tails. Kendra found herself doing the same, her military training kicking in automatically. The coffee shop was called Common Grounds, a hipster place with exposed brick and local art on the walls. Detective Reeves was already there, sitting at a corner table, 2 cups of coffee in front of him. He was younger than Kendra expected, maybe late 30s, with sharp eyes and the kind of face that gave nothing away. "Ms. Malik." "Miss Hawthorne." He stood, shook both their hands. "Thanks for meeting me. You said you had information," Simone said, getting straight to the point. "I do. But before I share it, I need to know something." Reeves looked at Kendra. "How far are you willing to take this?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, are you looking for a settlement? An apology? Or do you want to see Briggs in prison?" Kendra didn't hesitate. "Prison." Reeves nodded slowly. "Then we might be able to help each other." He pulled a folder from his bag, set it on the table. Inside were documents, reports, photographs. He spread them out carefully, like he was building a case. "Warren Briggs has been a problem for 15 years, Reeves said. "We've had complaints. Lots of them. Excessive force. Racial profiling. Sexual harassment. But every time, something happens. Witnesses recant. Evidence disappears. The union protects him. And nothing sticks." "Why are you telling us this?" Simone asked. "Because your case is different. You have video. You have witnesses. You have a military record that makes you credible. And most importantly, you're not backing down." Reeves looked at Kendra. "You're the case we've been waiting for. So you want to use me. I want to stop him. And yes, that means using your case as the foundation for a larger investigation." He pulled out more documents. "We have 3 other women willing to testify about Briggs. All traffic stops. All incidents where he put his hands on them inappropriately. All incidents that were swept under the rug." Kendra felt sick. 3 others. That we know about. There are probably more who never reported it. Simone was reading through the documents, her expression growing darker with each page. Why wasn't this investigated before? Politics. Pressure. The usual reasons. Reeves leaned forward. "But now, with your case making national news, we have leverage. We have public attention. We have a chance to actually hold him accountable. And all I have to do is keep being the public face of this," Kendra said. "Yes." She looked at Simone, who was still reading. "What do you think?" I think Detective Reeves is right. This is bigger than just your case now. Simone set down the documents. But it's your decision. You're the one who has to live with whatever comes next. Kendra thought about the 3 other women in those reports. About the ones who had never reported. About the ones who would come after if Briggs wasn't stopped. She thought about her grandmother's words. Sometimes you have to fight. Okay, she said. I'm in. What do you need from me? Reeves smiled. It was a small smile, tired but genuine. Right now? Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep telling the truth. Keep being visible. We'll handle the investigation. And Briggs? What about the threats? We're monitoring him. He's been told to stay away from you, from Morrison, from everyone involved in the case. If he violates that, he's done. And if his friends come after us? Reeves's expression hardened. Then they'll learn what happens when you threaten witnesses in a federal civil rights investigation. Federal. The word landed heavy. This wasn't just a local case anymore. This was bigger, more serious, more dangerous, but also more likely to succeed. They talked for another hour, going over details, timelines, expectations. By the time they left the coffee shop, Kendra felt like she had just enlisted in a new kind of war. One fought with lawyers and evidence and public opinion instead of weapons. But a war nonetheless. Simone drove them back to the apartment, and they spent the afternoon preparing. More statements. More documentation. More building of the case that would hopefully end Warren Briggs's career forever. Around 3, Kendra's phone rang. Unknown number again. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Kendra Malik? Yes. This is Officer Jacob Holloway. I was there the night you were arrested. I'm one of the witnesses. Kendra's heart started pounding. What do you want? I want to apologize. What Briggs did was wrong. What we let him do was wrong. And I want you to know that I'm cooperating fully with the investigation. Why are you calling me? A long pause. Because you deserve to know that not all of us are like him. Some of us still believe in doing the right thing, even when it's hard. Kendra didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to believe him. Another part remembered him standing there, watching, doing nothing until it was too late. Thank you for calling, she said finally. And thank you for cooperating. It's the least I can do. And Ms. Malik? Be careful. There are people who don't want this investigation to succeed. People who have a lot to lose if Briggs goes down. I know. Good. Stay safe. He hung up, leaving Kendra staring at her phone, trying to process what just happened. Who was that? Simone asked. One of the officers from that night. Holloway. He called to apologize. Simone's eyebrows rose. That's unexpected. He also warned me to be careful. That's less unexpected. Simone's phone buzzed. She checked it, and her expression changed. The DA just filed formal charges against Briggs. Assault. False imprisonment. Civil rights violations. He's being arraigned tomorrow. Tomorrow. It was all happening so fast. 3 days ago, Kendra had just been trying to get home to her grandmother. Now she was at the center of a federal investigation that could change everything. This is real, she said quietly. It's real, Simone confirmed. Are you ready? Kendra thought about all the reasons to say no. All the ways this could go wrong. All the danger she was stepping into. But she also thought about those 3 other women. About her grandmother. About every person who had ever been stopped by someone like Briggs and had no way to fight back. I'm ready, she said. And for the first time since this started, she almost believed it. If you were Kendra, would you keep fighting or take the easy way out? Let us know in the comments. The courthouse was a fortress of concrete and glass, its steps lined with reporters and cameras, and people holding signs. Some of the signs supported Kendra. Others defended Briggs. The division was stark, visible, a physical manifestation of how the country saw this case. Simone had warned her about this. About the circus. About the way justice became entertainment when cameras were involved. But nothing could have prepared Kendra for the reality of it. They arrived in an unmarked car, Detective Reeves driving, Simone beside her in the back seat. The plan was to enter through a side entrance, avoid the media as much as possible. But word had gotten out somehow. By the time they pulled up, reporters were already swarming. Stay close to me, Simone said. Don't answer any questions. Don't make eye contact. Just keep moving. Kendra nodded, pulled her jacket tighter, and stepped out into the chaos. Microphones thrust toward her face. Questions shouted from every direction. Kendra, how do you feel about Officer Briggs being charged? Do you think this is really about justice or just anti-police sentiment? What do you say to people who call you a cop hater? Simone's hand on her elbow guided her forward, Reeves clearing a path ahead of them. Security officers held the crowd back, but barely. It felt like being swept up in a current, pulled along by forces beyond her control. Inside, the courthouse was quieter but no less intense. People lined the hallways, some in police uniforms, others in civilian clothes. Their eyes followed Kendra as she walked, and she couldn't tell if the looks were hostile or curious or somewhere in between. The courtroom itself was packed. Kendra took her seat behind the prosecution table, Simone beside her, and tried to steady her breathing. This was just an arraignment. Briggs would plead, bail would be set, and they would all go home. Simple. Procedural. But nothing about this felt simple. The door at the side of the courtroom opened, and Warren Briggs walked in. He looked different in civilian clothes. Smaller somehow, without the uniform and the badge and all the authority they carried. He wore a suit, navy blue, his hair combed back, his expression carefully neutral. But when his eyes found Kendra across the courtroom, something flickered there. Something cold and calculating. His lawyer was a man named Richard Caldwell, expensive suit, silver hair, the kind of attorney who defended cops and won. He leaned over, whispered something to Briggs, who nodded without taking his eyes off Kendra. All rise. Judge Helen Martinez entered, a small woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and a reputation for being tough but fair. She took her seat, shuffled papers, and looked down at the defendant. Mr. Briggs, you're charged with assault in the second degree, false imprisonment, and violation of civil rights under color of authority. How do you plead? Caldwell stood. Not guilty, Your Honor. Bail is set at $50,000. You're ordered to surrender your passport, stay within the state, and maintain no contact with the victim or any witnesses in this case. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. Arraignment concluded. Trial date will be set within 90 days. The gavel came down, and it was over. Less than 5 minutes. Briggs stood, shook his lawyer's hand, and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. Kendra felt deflated. She didn't know what she had expected. Some kind of confrontation, maybe. Some acknowledgement of what he had done. But there was nothing. Just procedure. Just the machine of justice grinding forward with no emotion attached. That's normal, Simone said, reading her expression. Arraignments are always quick. The real fight comes at trial. They left through the same side entrance. The media swarm even larger now. Questions flew at them. But this time Simone stopped, turned to face the cameras. My client has no comment at this time. But I want to be clear about something. Warren Briggs abused his authority. He assaulted a young woman who had committed no crime. And now he's going to face the consequences of his actions. That's not anti-police. That's justice. She turned and kept walking, pulling Kendra along before anyone could respond. Back in the car, Reeves pulled away from the courthouse and headed toward the city. None of them spoke for several minutes, the weight of what had just happened settling over them like a blanket. $50,000, Kendra said finally. That's it. That's how bail works, Reeves said. He'll post it, be out by tonight. So he's just free? After everything. Until trial, yes. But he's being monitored. And if he violates the no-contact order, he goes right back in. Kendra stared out the window, watching the city pass by. Free. Briggs was going to be free while she lived in fear. While she hid in Simone's apartment and jumped at every noise and couldn't sleep through the night. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You made a big mistake. She showed it to Simone. That's the third one today, Simone said grimly. Reeves, we need to do something about this. Already on it. We're tracing the numbers, seeing if we can connect them to anyone in Briggs's circle. Reeves glanced in the rearview mirror. In the meantime, maybe it's time to consider protective custody. You mean witness protection? Just temporarily. Until things calm down. Kendra shook her head. I'm not hiding. That's what they want. They want me scared and silent. They want you dead, Reeves said bluntly. Or hurt bad enough that you drop the case. Don't underestimate how far some people will go to protect their own. He's right, Simone added. I've seen this before. The threats start small. Texts. Emails. Then someone shows up at your house. At your work. At your grandmother's house. Graham. Kendra's chest tightened. She had been so focused on her own safety that she hadn't thought enough about Lorraine. About what would happen if these people decided to send a message through her. Can you put protection on my grandmother? She asked. Already done, Reeves said. Local police are doing regular patrols past her house. Unmarked cars. She doesn't even know they're there. And what about when the trial starts? When I have to testify? Are you going to hide me then too? No. But we'll have security. Lots of it. Reeves pulled into the parking garage of Simone's building. Look, I know this isn't what you signed up for. But you need to understand something. You're not just fighting Briggs anymore. You're fighting a system that protects people like him. And that system has resources, connections, people willing to do whatever it takes to make this go away. They went upstairs, and Simone made coffee while Reeves set up his laptop on the dining table. He pulled up files, documents, things he said Kendra needed to see. I'm going to show you something, he said. But I need you to understand that what you're about to see doesn't leave this room. Not until we're ready to use it in court. Okay. Reeves opened a folder labeled Briggs Complaint History. Inside were dozens of files. Incident reports. Internal affairs investigations. Complaints from citizens. All dating back 15 years. This is everything we have on Briggs, Reeves said. And what you're going to see is a pattern. A very clear pattern of abuse that was ignored, covered up, or dismissed. He opened the first file. A complaint from 12 years ago. A black woman named Tamara Jenkins had accused Briggs of excessive force during a traffic stop. She said he had pulled her out of her car, slammed her against the hood, put his knee in her back while searching her. She filed a complaint. Internal Affairs investigated. Conclusion: unfounded. Officer Briggs acted within department guidelines. The second file was similar. A Hispanic man named Carlos Mendez stopped for a broken taillight. Briggs allegedly used a racial slur, then arrested him for disorderly conduct when Mendez objected. Complaint filed. Investigation conducted. Conclusion: insufficient evidence. File after file told the same story. People of color stopped for minor violations. Encounters that escalated unnecessarily. Complaints filed. Investigations that went nowhere. Why didn't anyone do anything? Kendra asked, her voice tight. Because the system is designed to protect cops, Reeves said. Internal Affairs investigates internal affairs. The union fights every discipline. And unless there's video evidence, it's the officer's word against the citizens. Guess who wins? He opened another file. This one made Kendra's stomach turn. A woman named Jessica Carr, 23 years old. White. College student. She had accused Briggs of sexual assault during a DUI stop 5 years ago. Said he offered to let her go if she performed a sexual act. When she refused, he arrested her, took her to a secluded area, and assaulted her anyway. She filed a complaint, hired a lawyer, pushed for criminal charges. But something happened. The file showed that she suddenly dropped the case, withdrew her complaint, refused to cooperate with investigators. What happened to her? Kendra asked. Reeves's expression was grim. She got scared. Someone broke into her apartment. Nothing stolen, but the message was clear. A week later, she withdrew everything, moved out of state. We haven't been able to contact her since. Kendra felt sick. This wasn't just about one bad cop. This was systematic, organized, evil. How did he get away with this for so long? Because he was smart. He picked victims carefully. People with records. People who wouldn't be believed. People who were too scared to fight back. Reeves closed the laptop. But he made a mistake with you. You're credible. You're sympathetic. You're a veteran. And you have evidence he can't explain away. So I'm the perfect victim. You're the victim who can finally stop him. Simone had been quiet during all of this, reading through printed copies of the complaints. Now she looked up, her face pale. There's something else, she said. Something in Jessica Carr's file. She mentioned that Briggs said something to her. Something specific. She read from the report. He told me that nobody would believe me. That he had friends everywhere. That if I tried to fight him, I would regret it. Then he said, I've done this before, and I'll do it again. Because I can. The room went silent. He admitted it, Kendra said. He told her he had done it before. Which means he knew exactly what he was doing, Simone said. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. Calculated. He's a predator. Reeves nodded slowly. And now we have to prove it. Kendra stood, paced to the window. The city spread out below her, millions of lives unfolding in buildings and streets and spaces she couldn't see. How many of them had stories like Jessica's? Like Tamara's? Like hers? How many people had been hurt by someone like Briggs and never gotten justice? I want to talk to them, she said suddenly. Who? Reeves asked. The other victims. The ones willing to testify. I want to meet them. That's not standard procedure. I don't care. If we're all going to be part of this case, we should know each other. Support each other. Kendra turned to face him. Can you arrange it? Reeves looked at Simone, who shrugged. It's her call. Okay, Reeves said finally. I'll set something up. But it has to be secure. Private. No media. No leaks. Give me a couple days. Those couple days felt like weeks. Kendra stayed in the apartment, watching the news coverage, reading the endless commentary online, trying to understand how the same event could be seen so differently by different people. To some, she was a hero, a brave woman standing up to corruption. To others, she was a troublemaker, a violent criminal who assaulted a police officer doing his job. The truth, she realized, didn't matter as much as the narrative. And right now, there were two competing narratives, each with their own audience, each gaining strength. Simone worked constantly, building the case, coordinating with Reeves, responding to the mountain of media requests. She had hired additional security for the building, cameras and guards and protocols that made Kendra feel both safer and more trapped. On the third day, Reeves called. It's set up. Tomorrow. 2 o'clock. I'm sending you the address. The location was a community center in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place that hosted after-school programs and senior citizen activities. Reeves met them at the door, led them through empty hallways to a conference room in the back. 3 women sat around a table. They looked up when Kendra entered, and she saw in their eyes the same thing she had been feeling: fear, determination, and the weight of carrying a story nobody wanted to hear. Kendra Malik, Reeves said. Meet Tamara Jenkins, Maria Santos, and Donna Richardson. Kendra took a seat, and for a moment, nobody spoke. They just looked at each other. These 4 women connected by one man's violence. Thank you for meeting with me, Kendra said finally. Tamara spoke first. She was in her early 40s now, with graying hair and tired eyes. When I saw your video on the news, I cried. Because I finally saw proof of what he did to me. What nobody believed. I believe you, Kendra said. I know. That's why we're here. Tamara glanced at the others. We all saw what happened to you. And we all decided it was time to stop being silent. Maria was younger, maybe 30, with a nervous energy that suggested she was still processing the decision to come forward. He pulled me over 3 years ago. Said my tags were expired. They weren't. He made me get out of the car, searched me, put his hands places they shouldn't have been. I filed a complaint. Nothing happened. Donna was the oldest, maybe 55, with a quiet strength that reminded Kendra of her grandmother. My son was in the car with me when Briggs stopped us. He was 16. Briggs pulled him out, threw him on the ground, put his knee on his neck while he searched the car. Found nothing. No apology. No explanation. Just told us to leave. She paused. My son has panic attacks now whenever he sees a police car. Each story landed like a stone in Kendra's chest. This was the pattern Reeves had talked about. This was the truth that had been buried for years. I'm sorry, she said, knowing the words were inadequate. I'm sorry this happened to all of you. And I'm sorry it took this long for anyone to listen. It's not your fault, Tamara said. It's his. And the system that protected him. She leaned forward. But now we have a chance. Your case opened the door. Now we can walk through it together. They spent the next 2 hours talking, sharing their stories, finding the similarities and the differences, building something that felt like solidarity. Kendra learned that Tamara was a nurse. Maria worked at a grocery store. Donna was a teacher. They were ordinary people who had done nothing wrong except exist in a place where Warren Briggs had power. Are you scared? Kendra asked them. Terrified, Maria admitted. I've already gotten threatening messages. People saying I'm lying. That I'm trying to destroy a good cop's life. Me too, Donna said. But I'm more scared of what happens if we don't fight. If we let him keep doing this. Tamara nodded. I spent 12 years being angry. Angry that nobody believed me. Angry that he got away with it. Angry at myself for not fighting harder. But now, I get to do something about it. That's worth the fear. Kendra felt something shift inside her. She wasn't alone in this. None of them were. They were a collective. A force. And together, maybe they could actually change something. Detective Reeves says the trial will probably be in a couple months, she said. Are you all still willing to testify? All 3 nodded. Then we're going to win this, Kendra said. We're going to make sure he never hurts anyone else. As they prepared to leave, Tamara pulled Kendra aside. There's something you should know, she said quietly. After I filed my complaint, I did some digging. Try to find out more about Briggs. and I found something strange. What? He had a daughter. She died when she was 7 years old. Car accident. Kendra's stomach tightened. When? 16 years ago. Right before he joined the force. Tamara paused. I don't know if it means anything. But I always wondered if that's when something broke in him. When he stopped being a person and became a monster. Kendra thought about that on the drive back to Simone's apartment. About grief and trauma, and the ways pain could twist a person into something unrecognizable. But then she thought about her own trauma. About the things she had seen overseas. About the friends she had lost. About the scars that never fully healed. And she had never hurt anyone who didn't deserve it. Trauma wasn't an excuse. It was just context. Warren Briggs had made his choices. Had chosen power over compassion. Had chosen violence over humanity. And now he was going to face the consequences. That night, Kendra dreamed about the checkpoint. But in the dream, it wasn't just her standing there. It was Tamara and Maria and Donna. It was Jessica Carr and all the others whose names she didn't know. They stood together, forming a wall, and when Briggs reached for her throat, a dozen hands stopped him. In the dream, they were stronger than he was. When she woke, she hoped the reality would be the same. The weeks that followed settled into a strange routine. Kendra stayed mostly at Simone's apartment, venturing out only for necessary meetings and brief visits to see her grandmother. The media attention had calmed somewhat, replaced by the slow grind of legal proceedings and pre-trial motions. But something unexpected had happened. The four women, Kendra, Tamara, Maria, and Donna, had started meeting regularly. What began as strategy sessions coordinated by Reeves had evolved into something more personal. Something that felt like friendship forged in the fire of shared trauma. They met at the community center every Thursday afternoon. Sometimes Simone or Reeves joined them. Often, it was just the four of them, sitting around that same conference table, talking about everything and nothing. My daughter asked me why I was doing this. Donna said one afternoon, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. She's 20 now, studying to be a social worker. And she asked me if it was worth it. All the stress, all the threats, all the people calling me a liar online. What did you tell her? Maria asked. I told her I was doing it for her. So that when she's my age, maybe she won't have to be scared of the people who are supposed to protect her. Donna's voice cracked slightly. And I told her that silence never changed anything. That sometimes, the only way forward is through. Kendra felt a lump form in her throat. She had been thinking similar thoughts lately. About why she was doing this. About what it would cost, and what it might achieve. My grandmother said something to me the other day, she said. She told me that every generation has to fight the same battles, just in different ways. That her generation marched and sat in, and put their bodies on the line. And now it's our turn. Our way of fighting. Tamara nodded. My mother was part of the civil rights movement. Got arrested at a sit-in in Birmingham when she was 19. She told me once that the scariest part wasn't the police or the dogs or the fire hoses. It was wondering if it would matter. If anything would actually change. Did it? Maria asked. Some things did. Some things didn't. Tamara smiled sadly. But she said that wasn't the point. The point was that you had to try. That you couldn't live with yourself if you didn't. They sat in silence for a moment, for women from different backgrounds and different lives, connected by the same fight. Can I tell you something? Maria said suddenly. Something I haven't told anyone except my therapist. Of course, Kendra said. After Briggs stopped me, after he put his hands on me, I stopped driving for 6 months. Just completely stopped. I took the bus everywhere, walked when I had to, but I couldn't get behind the wheel. Maria's voice was quiet. Because every time I tried, I would have a panic attack. I would see his face in the rearview mirror, feel his hands on me, and I couldn't breathe. Donna reached over, took Maria's hand. That's not weakness. That's trauma. I know. My therapist told me the same thing. But it felt weak. It felt like he had won. Like he had taken something from me that I couldn't get back. Maria looked up, her eyes bright with unshed tears. But then I saw Kendra's video. And I saw her fight back. And I thought, maybe I can fight back too. Maybe I can take back what he stole. You are fighting back, Kendra said. By being here. By telling your story. That takes more courage than anything I did. You defended yourself against a cop who was assaulting you. That's incredible courage. I was trained for that. My body knew what to do before my brain could think about it. Kendra shook her head. But you, all of you, you're choosing to relive your trauma. To put yourselves through this knowing how hard it will be. That's a different kind of bravery. Tamara pulled out her phone, showed them something on the screen. It was a social media post, one of thousands that had appeared since the story broke. But this one was different. It was from a young woman, maybe 25, and it said, "I was too scared to report what happened to me during a traffic stop last year. But seeing these women stand up gives me hope. Maybe it's not too late. Maybe I can be brave too." "I've gotten dozens of messages like this," Tamara said. "People telling me that our stories gave them courage. That they're going to come forward too." "Me too," Donna said. "It's overwhelming sometimes. All these people looking to us like we have answers." "We don't have answers," Kendra said. "We just have our truth. And sometimes, that's enough." Maria wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get emotional." "Don't apologize," Donna said firmly. "This is a safe space. We get to be emotional. We get to be angry and scared and sad, and whatever else we need to be." "That's right," Tamara added. "No judgment here. Just understanding." And for the first time since this whole ordeal began, Kendra felt something she hadn't expected to feel. Peace. Not complete peace. Not the kind that erased the trauma or made everything better, but the peace that came from knowing she wasn't alone. That she had people who understood, who believed her without question, who were fighting the same fight. After the meeting, as they were packing up, Tamara suggested something unexpected. "What if we got dinner? All of us. Somewhere nice. Just to do something normal for once." "I'd like that," Maria said immediately. Donna nodded. "Me too. I'm tired of letting this case consume my entire life." Kendra hesitated. She had been so careful about going out in public, about being seen. But the idea of a normal dinner, of being just 4 women sharing a meal instead of 4 victims preparing for trial, was deeply appealing. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it." They found a small Italian restaurant in a neighborhood none of them had been to before. It was cozy and dim, with candles on the tables and soft music playing in the background. The kind of place where you could almost forget the outside world existed. They ordered wine and pasta and bread, and for the first hour, they didn't talk about Briggs or the case or anything related to it. They talked about their lives, their families, their hopes and dreams, and the mundane details that made them human. Kendra learned that Tamara collected vintage records and had a 12-year-old son who was obsessed with basketball. That Maria was taking online classes to become a paralegal. That Donna had been married for 30 years to a man who still made her laugh every day. And she told them about her grandmother's garden, about her time in the Marines, about the friends she had lost overseas and the ones she was still in touch with, about the life she was trying to build now that she was home. "What do you want to do?" Donna asked. "Long term, I mean. After all this is over." Kendra hadn't let herself think that far ahead. The trial loomed so large that everything beyond it felt theoretical. But now, sitting here with these women, she allowed herself to imagine. "I don't know. Maybe go back to school. Get a degree in criminal justice or social work. Help other people who've been through what we've been through." She paused. "Or maybe just live quietly somewhere. Have a garden like my grandmother's. Let the world move on without me for a while." "Both sound good," Maria said. "You've earned quiet. You've earned peace. We all have," Tamara said, raising her glass. "So here's to us. To surviving. To fighting. And to whatever comes after." They clinked glasses, and in that moment, Kendra felt something shift. The weight she had been carrying didn't disappear, but it felt lighter somehow. Shared. As dinner wound down and they prepared to leave, a man approached their table. He was older, maybe 60, with kind eyes and the weathered face of someone who had lived a full life. "Excuse me," he said, his voice tentative. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to thank you." "Thank us?" Kendra asked, confused. "I saw you on the news. All of you. And what you're doing, standing up to that officer, it matters." His eyes were wet. "My daughter was killed by a drunk driver 10 years ago. The driver was an off-duty cop. He got a slap on the wrist. Probation. No jail time. And there was nothing we could do because the system protected him." The table went silent. "I've spent 10 years being angry," the man continued. "Angry at him. Angry at the system. Angry at God. But watching you fight, it gives me hope. Hope that maybe things can change. That maybe my daughter's death doesn't have to be meaningless." Donna stood, pulled the man into a hug. He broke down, shoulders shaking, years of grief pouring out in this small restaurant surrounded by strangers who suddenly felt like family. When he finally pulled away, he thanked them again and left, leaving the four women staring at each other with tears in their eyes. "This is bigger than we thought," Maria whispered. "It always was," Tamara said. "We just didn't see it yet." They paid the bill and walked out into the cool evening air. The city hummed around them, indifferent to their small triumph of connection and shared purpose. But Kendra felt different. Felt like maybe, just maybe, they were building something that mattered. Simone picked them up, drove each woman home. When it was just Kendra left in the car, Simone glanced at her. "Good night. Really good night. You needed that. Connection. Community. Something that isn't just about the case." Simone navigated through traffic. "How are you feeling about everything? The trial's coming up fast." "Nervous. Scared. But also ready." Kendra looked out the window. "I spent so long thinking I had to do this alone. Be strong alone. But tonight reminded me that strength doesn't mean isolation. It means letting people in. Letting them help carry the weight. That's very wise. My grandmother would say it's just common sense." Kendra smiled. "She's been trying to teach me that my whole life." Guess it finally sank in. Back at the apartment, Kendra checked her phone and found a text from an unknown number. Her heart rate spiked, expecting another threat. But the message was different. "This is Officer Holloway. I testified at a pre-trial hearing today. Told the truth about what I saw that night. Thought you should know. Whatever happens, I'm on your side. Stay strong." She showed it to Simone. "That's good news," Simone said. "Having a cop testify against another cop, that's powerful. The defense will try to discredit him, but it's still significant. Why is he doing this? He could face retaliation from other officers. Maybe he's tired of being complicit. Maybe he has a conscience." Simone poured them both water. Or maybe he just recognizes that what Briggs did was wrong, and he's not willing to protect him anymore. Kendra saved the number, added a contact name, Holloway, ally, because that's what he was. An unexpected ally in a fight that had too many enemies. That night, she slept better than she had in weeks. No nightmares about checkpoints or hands on her throat. Just dreams of dinner tables and laughter and people who understood. The next morning, she woke to her phone ringing. It was Detective Reeves. "We got him," he said without preamble. "Got who?" "The person sending you threats." Traced the number. "It's a guy named Derek Willis. Former cop. Friend of Briggs. He's being picked up as we speak." Relief flooded through her. "So it's over?" "The threats. From him, yes. But Kendra, I need you to understand something. Willis is small time. A follower. There are bigger fish out there. People with more to lose if Briggs goes down." "Who?" "We're still investigating. But there are indicators that some of the threats are coming from active duty officers. People still on the force who see this case as an attack on all cops." Reeves paused. "Which means we need to be more careful, not less." The peace from last night felt suddenly fragile. But Kendra pushed back against the fear trying to take hold. "I'm not stopping," she said. "I'm not backing down. I know. That's what makes you dangerous to them. And that's what makes them dangerous to you." Reeves's voice softened slightly. "But you're not alone. Remember that. You have a team. You have allies. And we're going to see this through." After the call ended, Kendra stood at the window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Warren Briggs was preparing his defense. Somewhere out there, people were plotting against her. Somewhere out there, the machinery of injustice was grinding away, trying to protect its own. But somewhere out there, people were also watching, learning, finding their courage because she had found hers. Her phone buzzed. A group text from Tamara. "Same time next Thursday? My place this time. I'll cook." Maria responded immediately. "I'll bring wine." Donna. "And I'll bring dessert." Kendra typed back. "I'll bring myself." "That's enough, right?" Tamara's response came quick. "That's more than enough. That's everything." Kendra smiled, set down her phone, and went to make coffee. The trial was coming. The fight was far from over. But for the first time, she felt like she had more than just evidence and lawyers and legal strategy. She had sisters in arms. Women who understood. A community of survivors who refused to be silent. And that, she was learning, was the most powerful weapon of all. The rest of the week passed in preparation. More meetings with Simone. More strategy sessions. More going over her testimony until she could recite it in her sleep. The prosecution was building a strong case, Simone assured her. The video was damning. The witness testimony was solid. The pattern of behavior was clear. But trials were unpredictable. Juries were unpredictable. And Briggs's lawyer, Richard Caldwell, had a reputation for turning victims into defendants. He's going to try to make you look aggressive, Simone warned during one of their prep sessions. He's going to bring up your military training. Suggest that you overreacted, that you were looking for a fight. Let him try, Kendra said. I know my truth. Truth doesn't always win in courtrooms. Narrative does. Story does. Simone leaned forward. So we need to tell your story better than he tells his. We need to make the jury see you as a person, not just a veteran or a victim or whatever label he tries to attach. They practiced. Simone playing the role of hostile defense attorney, throwing questions designed to rattle her. At first, Kendra stumbled, got defensive, let her emotions show too much. But gradually, she found her center. Found the calm she had learned in the Marines. The ability to stay focused under pressure. To answer questions clearly and honestly without being baited into anger. Better, Simone said after one particularly grueling session. Much better. You're ready. Am I? You are. And Kendra? Whatever happens in that courtroom, you've already won something important. What's that? You didn't let him break you. You fought back. And you inspired others to do the same. Simone smiled. That's not nothing. That's everything. Thursday came, and Kendra drove to Tamara's house. It was a small brick home in a quiet neighborhood, with a well-kept lawn and flowers lining the walkway. Inside, it was warm and lived in, filled with family photos and the smell of something delicious cooking. Tamara's son, Marcus, was there briefly, a gangly 12-year-old who shook Kendra's hand with surprising maturity before disappearing to his room. Maria arrived next, then Donna, and soon the four of them were in the kitchen, cooking together, talking and laughing like old friends. This feels normal, Maria said, chopping vegetables. I almost forgot what normal felt like. Normal is underrated, Donna agreed. We spend so much time chasing extraordinary that we forget how precious ordinary can be. They ate dinner at Tamara's dining table, a simple meal of pasta and salad and bread. But it felt like a feast. Felt like celebration. Not of victory, not yet, but of survival. Of making it this far. Of still being whole enough to sit together and share food and find moments of joy. Trial starts in 2 weeks, Tamara said as they cleared dishes. Are we ready? No, Kendra said honestly. But I don't think we'll ever be ready. So we'll just have to be brave instead. I can do brave, Maria said. I think. You can, Donna assured her. We all can. Because we've already survived the worst part. We've already lived through what he did to us. Testifying about it. That's just telling the truth. And we're all good at that. Before they left, Tamara gave each of them a small gift. Simple bracelets, each with a single word engraved on a silver charm. Kendra said, strength. Maria's said, courage. Donna's said, resilience. Tamara's said, justice. So we remember, Tamara said. So we carry it with us into that courtroom. Kendra fastened the bracelet around her wrist, felt the weight of it. It wasn't heavy, but it felt like a promise. A reminder that she wasn't fighting alone. On the drive back to Simone's apartment, Kendra touched the bracelet, felt the engraving beneath her fingers. Strength. She had always thought of strength as something physical. Something you use to lift weights or climb walls or fight enemies. But this was different. This was the strength to be vulnerable. To tell the truth even when it hurt. To stand in front of strangers and say, this happened to me, and it was wrong. That kind of strength, she was learning, was the hardest kind of all. And the most important. The morning of the trial arrived with unseasonable cold. Kendra awoke before dawn, her body refusing sleep despite the exhaustion that had settled into her bones. She stood at the window of Simone's apartment, watching the city wake up, and tried to prepare herself for what was coming. Her phone buzzed. A text from her grandmother. I'm praying for you, baby. You walk in there with your head high. You've got nothing to be ashamed of. She texted back. Love you, Gram. Love you more. Now go show them what we're made of. Simone emerged from her bedroom already dressed in a sharp charcoal suit, her armor for battle. She took one look at Kendra and poured 2 cups of coffee. You eat anything? She asked. Can't. Try. You need your strength. Simone set a plate of toast in front of her. Today's going to be long. Opening statements. Jury selection completion. Maybe the start of testimony if we move quickly. Kendra forced herself to eat, though the toast felt like cardboard in her mouth. Her hands were steady, but inside, everything felt like chaos. She had faced enemy fire, had walked through active combat zones, had stared down death more times than she could count. But this felt different. More personal. More exposing. They arrived at the courthouse 2 hours before proceedings were scheduled to begin. Security was intense, metal detectors and bag searches and officers everywhere. The media presence had tripled since the arraignment, cameras and reporters forming a gauntlet they had to navigate. Inside, Reeves met them at the prosecution table. "How are you holding up?" "I'm here," Kendra said. "That's all I can promise. That's all we need." The courtroom filled slowly. Kendra watched people take their seats, trying to read allegiances in faces. Some looked sympathetic, others hostile, most just curious, treating this like entertainment rather than someone's life being dissected in public. Then Warren Briggs walked in. He looked different than he had at the arraignment. Thinner, harder. His suit was expensive, his hair perfectly styled, but there was something in his eyes that made Kendra's stomach tighten. Not fear, not remorse, rage. Their eyes met across the courtroom, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. She saw in his expression everything he wanted to say, everything he wanted to do, and she knew, with absolute certainty, that this man would never accept responsibility for what he had done. He would fight until there was nothing left to fight with. Richard Caldwell sat beside him, a silver fox in a $3,000 suit, already reviewing notes with the casual confidence of someone who had won more cases than he had lost. He glanced at Kendra once, his expression unreadable, then returned to his papers. "All rise." Judge Martinez entered, and the trial began. Jury selection had been completed over the past week, 12 people who would decide Warren Briggs's fate. Kendra studied them as they filed in. 7 women, 5 men. Mixed races, mixed ages. Simone had said they were as fair a jury as they could hope for. But fair didn't always mean just. The prosecution went first. Assistant District Attorney Michael Chin stood, walked to the center of the courtroom, and began. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about abuse of power. It's about a police officer who forgot that his badge doesn't give him the right to put his hands on an innocent woman." On the night of August 15th, Kendra Malik was driving home to visit her grandmother. She had committed no crime. She posed no threat. But Officer Warren Briggs pulled her over, escalated a routine traffic stop into a violent encounter, and then arrested her for defending herself when he grabbed her by the throat. Chin's voice was calm, measured, but powerful. He walked them through the evidence methodically. The dashcam footage, the witness testimony, the pattern of complaints against Briggs stretching back over a decade. The defense will try to tell you that Ms. Malik was aggressive, that she overreacted, that Officer Briggs was just doing his job. Chin paused, let the words hang. But the video doesn't lie. And what the video shows is a clear case of assault by a law enforcement officer who believed he was above the law. You'll hear from Ms. Malik herself. You'll hear from other women who have experienced similar treatment from the defendant. And when you've heard all the evidence, we believe you'll have no choice but to find Warren Briggs guilty on all counts. He sat down, and Kendra felt a flicker of hope. Chin was good. He had laid out the case clearly, powerfully. Surely the jury could see the truth. Then Richard Caldwell stood, and everything changed. "Ladies and gentlemen, my client is a decorated police officer with 17 years of exemplary service. He has served his community with honor, put his life on the line every single day, and asked nothing in return except the respect that his badge deserves." Caldwell's voice was smooth, almost fatherly. But on August 15th, he encountered someone who didn't give him that respect. Someone trained in military hand-to-hand combat. Someone who, when asked to comply with a lawful order, chose violence instead. Kendra felt her jaw tighten. This was exactly what Simone had warned her about. The narrative shift. The reframing. Now, the prosecution wants you to believe that Officer Briggs assaulted Ms. Malik. But what the video actually shows is an officer trying to maintain control of a volatile situation. When he placed his hand on Ms. Malik's shoulder to guide her, she responded with a trained combat technique that could have seriously injured him. That's not self-defense. That's assault. Caldwell walked closer to the jury, his expression sincere. "We don't deny that Officer Briggs made contact with Ms. Malik. But context matters. Intent matters. And when you see the full picture, when you understand what Officer Briggs was facing that night, you'll realize that he acted reasonably under difficult circumstances. The real question isn't whether Officer Briggs did his job. It's whether Ms. Malik's response was justified. And we believe the evidence will show it absolutely was not. He returned to his seat, and Kendra felt sick. He had taken the truth and twisted it, just enough to plant doubt. Made her the aggressor. Made Briggs the victim. The prosecution calls Kendra Malik to the stand. This was it. The moment she had been preparing for. Kendra stood, her legs surprisingly steady, and walked to the witness stand. She placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, and sat down. Michael Chen approached with a kind expression. Ms. Malik, can you tell the jury what happened on the night of August 15th? Kendra took a breath, touched the bracelet on her wrist. Strength. Then she began. She told the story the same way she had told it before. Driving home. The checkpoint. Briggs approaching her car with hostility already in his posture. The escalation. His hand on her throat. What did you feel in that moment? Chen asked. Fear. And anger. I felt violated. Threatened. And I knew I had to get his hand off me before the situation got worse. Did you intend to hurt Officer Briggs? No. I used a basic joint manipulation to break his grip. It's a defensive technique. Non-lethal. Designed to create distance without causing permanent injury. And what happened after? He arrested me. Charged me with assault. Put me in a cell like I was a criminal. Kendra's voice stayed steady, but emotion bled through. I had served my country. I had done everything right. And I still ended up in handcuffs because I defended myself from assault. Chen asked more questions, walking her through the arrest, the night in the cell, the aftermath. Each answer felt like reopening a wound, but Kendra pushed through. Then it was Caldwell's turn. He stood slowly, buttoned his jacket, and approached the witness stand with the careful steps of a predator. Ms. Malik, you served in the Marines, correct? Yes. And you received training in hand-to-hand combat? Yes. Extensive training? Standard training for all Marines. But you also taught hand-to-hand combat, didn't you? To other Marines? Kendra hesitated. Yes. So it's fair to say you're an expert in violence? Objection, Chen said immediately. Argumentative. Sustained. Caldwell smiled. Let me rephrase. You're highly skilled in techniques designed to incapacitate opponents, correct? Designed to defend myself, yes. And when you used one of those techniques on Officer Briggs, did you consider that you might seriously injure him? I used minimal force. Just enough to break his grip. Just enough. Caldwell's eyebrows rose. Officer Briggs had to seek medical treatment for his arm. He couldn't work for a week. That doesn't sound minimal to me. He grabbed my throat. I defended myself. By attacking a police officer. By stopping an assault. Caldwell walked back to the defense table, picked up a document. Ms. Malik, isn't it true that you were diagnosed with PTSD after your military service? Kendra's blood ran cold. I received counseling. Many veterans do. PTSD that includes hypervigilance. Isn't that right? A tendency to perceive threats where none exist. Objection, Chen stood. Relevance. Your Honor, it goes to Ms. Malik's state of mind during the encounter. Whether her perception of events was accurate or colored by her condition. I'll allow it, Judge Martinez said. But tread carefully, counselor. Kendra felt the ground shifting beneath her. This was what Simone had warned about. The character assassination. The twist that made her the problem. I perceived a threat because there was a threat, she said, her voice firm. A man had his hand on my throat. That's not PTSD. That's reality. Or is it your interpretation of reality? Colored by your military experience? Your training that tells you to neutralize threats? He grabbed my throat. He placed his hand on your shoulder to guide you. That's a lie. Is it? Or is it possible that in your hypervigilant state, you misinterpreted a reasonable action by a police officer as an assault? Kendra felt her control slipping. Felt anger rising hot in her chest. I know the difference between my shoulder and my throat. And the video proves it. The video shows contact. It doesn't show intent. It doesn't show what Officer Briggs was thinking or whether your response was proportional. Caldwell moved closer. Tell me, Ms. Malik, do you hate police officers? No. Have you ever made statements critical of law enforcement? I've criticized police brutality. That's not the same as hating police. But you have strong opinions about how police should behave. I have strong opinions about assault being wrong. Yes. Strong enough that when Officer Briggs tried to do his job, you saw it as an opportunity to make a point? To be the hero who stands up to the system? That's not what happened. Isn't it though? You're a veteran. Trained warrior. You see an officer exercising his authority, and you decide to put him in his place. He put his hands on me without cause. I defended myself. That's all. Caldwell stared at her for a long moment, then turned to the jury. Or that's what you want everyone to believe. Thank you, Ms. Malik. No further questions. Kendra walked back to her seat on shaking legs. She had kept her composure, mostly, but she felt flayed open, exposed. Everything she had been afraid of had just happened in front of a room full of strangers. Simone squeezed her hand under the table. You did good, she whispered. He tried to rattle you, and you held firm. But Kendra didn't feel firm. She felt like she was breaking apart. The prosecution called more witnesses. Officer Holloway, who testified that Briggs had been aggressive from the start, that his use of force was unnecessary. The other officer from that night, who reluctantly confirmed the same. Then came Tamara, Maria, and Donna. One by one, they took the stand and told their stories. Briggs's pattern of abuse laid bare in painful detail. Kendra watched the jury, saw some of them moved, saw others skeptical. But she also saw them looking at Briggs, studying him, trying to reconcile the decorated officer his lawyer described with the man these women were testifying against. When Donna finished her testimony, describing how her teenage son still had nightmares about Briggs's knee on his neck, several jury members were openly emotional. It was working. The truth was getting through. Then Caldwell cross-examined them. He was brutal, picked apart their memories, questioned their motivations, suggested they were jumping on a bandwagon, looking for attention or money or revenge. By the time he finished with Maria, she was in tears. Donna looked gutted. Even Tamara, strong Tamara, seemed shaken. The day ended with the prosecution resting. Judge Martinez dismissed the jury, and everyone filed out of the courtroom. Kendra felt numb, disconnected, like she was watching everything from a distance. Outside, the media swarm was worse than ever. Questions shouted. Cameras flashing. Simone guided her through it. But one reporter's question cut through the noise. Ms. Malik, how do you respond to accusations that you're anti-police? Kendra stopped, turned. Simone tried to pull her away, but she shook her head. I'm not anti-police, she said, her voice carrying. I'm anti-abuse. I'm anti-assault. I'm anti-police officers who think the badge gives them the right to hurt people. She paused. Good cops have nothing to fear from this case. Only bad ones do. They kept walking, but Kendra knew that Clip would be everywhere by morning. Knew she had just given the defense more ammunition. Back at the apartment, she collapsed on the couch while Simone poured wine. You shouldn't have talked to that reporter, Simone said gently. I know. I just couldn't stay silent anymore. I understand. But Caldwell will use it. He'll say you're biased. That you had an agenda. Let him. I don't care anymore. Kendra took the wine, drank deeply. I told the truth today. They all told the truth. And it still feels like we're losing. We're not losing. The jury heard powerful testimony. They saw the video. They saw Briggs's pattern of behavior. They also heard Caldwell paint me as a violent, cop-hating veteran with PTSD who overreacted to a routine traffic stop. Some of them maybe, but not all of them. Simone sat beside her. Trials are messy. Justice is messy. But that doesn't mean it's not worth fighting for. Kendra's phone buzzed. Multiple texts coming in rapid succession. The first was from her grandmother. Baby, you were incredible today. So proud of you. The second was from an unknown number. You lying bitch. You're going to pay for this. The third was from Tamara. We're all meeting at my place tomorrow night. We need each other right now. Kendra showed the threatening message to Simone, who immediately forwarded it to Reeves. That's the fifth one today, Simone said. They're getting bolder. Good. Let them come. Kendra felt something dark and reckless rising in her. I'm tired of being scared. Tired of hiding. If they want to threaten me, they can do it to my face. Kendra. I know I'm supposed to be careful. But I'm just so tired, Simone. Tired of this whole thing. Tired of having my life torn apart. Tired of being treated like I'm the criminal when I'm the victim. Simone pulled her into a hug, and Kendra finally let herself break. Let the tears come. Let the anger and fear and exhaustion pour out in heaving sobs that shook her whole body. I just want this to be over, she said into Simone's shoulder. I just want my life back. I know, honey. I know. They sat like that for a long time, two women holding each other against the weight of injustice, until Kendra had no more tears left to cry. That night, she dreamed about the courtroom. But in the dream, When Caldwell asked his questions, she had no answers. Her voice failed. The words wouldn't come. And Briggs sat at the defense table, smiling, knowing he had won. She woke in a cold sweat, heart pounding, and knew sleep wouldn't come again. The next day in court was worse. The defense called its witnesses. Other police officers who testified about Briggs's excellent record, his years of service, his dedication to the community. Character witnesses who painted him as a hero, a family man, someone who would never abuse his authority. Then Briggs himself took the stand. He was good. Kendra had to admit that. He spoke with calm confidence, his voice never wavering. He described the stop as routine, his actions as standard procedure. He said he had felt threatened by Kendra's demeanor, concerned for his safety. When she grabbed my arm and twisted it, I thought she was going to break it, he said, his voice tinged with just enough emotion to seem genuine. I've been a police officer for 17 years. I've faced dangerous situations. But I've never had someone attack me like that during a routine traffic stop. And what did you feel in that moment? Caldwell asked. Fear and confusion. I was just trying to do my job, and suddenly I was being assaulted by someone with military combat training. He looked at the jury. I arrested her because she assaulted me. Not because of who she is or what she looks like. Because she attacked a police officer. Chin's cross-examination was aggressive, but Briggs held firm. Denied the complaints against him. Called the previous accusations lies. Maintained his innocence with unwavering certainty. By the time he stepped down, Kendra felt defeated. He had been convincing. Too convincing. And the jury's faces were impossible to read. Closing arguments came the next day. Chun went first, weaving together all the evidence into a narrative of abuse and accountability. He was eloquent, passionate, powerful. But Caldwell was better. He spoke about the dangers police officers face every day. About the split-second decisions they have to make. About the second-guessing and Monday morning quarterbacking that comes when those decisions are questioned. Officer Briggs is not perfect, he said. None of us are. But he is a good man who made a reasonable decision under difficult circumstances. And Ms. Malik, with all her training, with all her skills, responded with violence. She is the one who escalated. She is the one who used excessive force. And she is the one who should be held accountable. He sat down, and Kendra knew in her gut that it wasn't enough. That despite the video, despite the testimony, despite everything, there was a chance the jury might side with the badge over the truth. The jury deliberated for 3 days. 3 days of waiting, of pacing, of checking her phone obsessively for updates that never came. Kendra stayed at Simone's apartment, the other women rotating through to keep her company. But nothing helped. Nothing eased the gnawing anxiety that she had come this far only to lose. On the third day, the call came. The jury had reached a verdict. They rushed to the courthouse, fought through the media gauntlet, took their seats. The courtroom was packed, tension thick enough to choke on. Judge Martinez called the jury in. Kendra's heart pounded so hard she thought everyone could hear it. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. The foreperson, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, handed the form to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. Martinez read it silently, her expression giving nothing away. On the charge of assault in the second degree, how do you find? Not guilty. The words hit Kendra like a physical blow. Not guilty. The air left her lungs. The room spun. On the charge of false imprisonment, how do you find? Not guilty. Simone grabbed her hand, squeezed so tight it hurt. Kendra couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be happening. On the charge of civil rights violations, how do you find? A pause. The longest pause of Kendra's life. Guilty. The courtroom erupted. Gasps and shouts, and the judge's gavel pounding for order. Kendra sat frozen, trying to process. Guilty on one count. Not guilty on the others. What did that even mean? Briggs's face had gone white. His lawyer was already objecting, demanding a mistrial. But Martinez silenced him with a look. Mr. Briggs, you will remain in custody pending sentencing. This court is adjourned. Security escorted Briggs out. He looked at Kendra as he passed, and the hatred in his eyes was absolute. He had lost something, but not everything. And somehow, that made him more dangerous, not less. Outside, chaos. The media frenzy was insane. Simone handled the questions, gave a statement about partial victory and the importance of accountability. But Kendra couldn't speak. Couldn't even think straight. They got to the car. and she finally found her voice. We lost. No, Simone said firmly. We didn't lose. We won on the most important charge. Civil rights violation means he can never wear a badge again. Means he's a convicted felon. Means we stopped him. But the assault charge, he got away with putting his hands on me. The jury couldn't agree on intent. It happens. But Kendra, he was convicted. That's what matters. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like being cheated. Like the truth had been acknowledged, but only halfway. Like justice had been rationed instead of served. Her phone exploded with messages. Some celebrating. Some outraged. Some threatening worse things than before now that the trial was over and restrictions were lifted. One message stood out. From Briggs's phone, though that should have been impossible. This isn't over. You haven't won anything. Watch your back. She showed it to Simone, whose face went pale. That's a direct threat from the defendant. We need to report this immediately. But before they could, another message came through. A photo of her grandmother's house, with a red X spray painted on the front door. Kendra's blood turned to ice. Drive, she said. Drive to my grandmother's now. Part 8. Act 8. The choice. Simone broke every speed limit getting to Lorraine's house. Kendra's hands gripped the door handle so tight her knuckles went white, her breath coming in short gasps as worst-case scenarios flooded her mind. The image of that red X burned behind her eyelids every time she blinked. She had brought this to her grandmother's doorstep, had painted a target on the one person she loved most in the world. When they pulled onto the street, 3 police cars were already there, lights flashing. Kendra was out of the car before Simone even stopped fully, running toward the house. Detective Reeves met her at the front walk. She's okay. She's inside. She's safe. Kendra pushed past him, through the front door, and found her grandmother sitting on the couch with a female officer. Lorraine looked small, older than her 73 years, but her eyes were sharp and angry when they met Kendra's. Graham, Kendra breathed, crossing the room in 3 steps and pulling her into a fierce hug. I'm fine, baby. Takes more than some paint to scare me. But Lorraine's hands shook slightly as she held her granddaughter. They did it while I was at the store. Came back and found that mess on my door. And this. She held up a piece of paper. The message was printed in block letters. Tell your granddaughter Tio, drop the appeal, or next time we'll be inside waiting. Appeal. They thought she was going to appeal the not guilty verdicts. Thought she was going to keep fighting. Maybe she should. Maybe she shouldn't let them win. But not at this cost. Not with her grandmother's life on the line. We need to get you somewhere safe, Kendra said. This is my home. I've lived here for 42 years. I'm not leaving because some cowards want to scare me. Graham, please. No. Lorraine's voice was firm. You listen to me, Kendra Lynn. I didn't raise you to run. I didn't raise you to let bullies win. And I sure didn't raise you to put yourself in danger trying to protect me when I can take care of myself. You can't take care of yourself against people like this. Then I'll get help. I'll let these nice officers patrol my street. I'll install cameras and locks and whatever else needs doing. Lorraine gripped Kendra's hands. But what I won't do is let you sacrifice everything you've fought for because someone painted my door. Reeves stepped into the room. Mrs. Malik, with all due respect, this is more serious than vandalism. This is witness intimidation. Threatening a family member of someone involved in a federal case. We're taking this very seriously. Good. You should. But if you think I'm going to hide while my granddaughter stands alone, you don't know me very well. Lorraine looked at Kendra. Tell me the truth. Are you thinking about stopping? About not appealing those charges? Kendra hesitated. She had been thinking exactly that. Had been planning to tell Simone she was done, that one conviction was enough, that she couldn't risk her grandmother's life for more. I don't know, she admitted. That's fear talking. And I understand fear. But I also know that if you stop now, they win. Briggs wins. Every cop who thinks he can do whatever he wants wins. And every woman who comes after you gets the message that fighting back isn't worth it. But you could get hurt. I could get hurt crossing the street. Could get hurt in a dozen different ways every single day. Life doesn't come with guarantees, baby. Lorraine's voice softened. But I know this. I would rather risk my safety fighting for what's right than live safely knowing I let evil win. Kendra felt tears burning her eyes. Her grandmother had always been strong, but this was different. This was choosing courage over safety, principle over comfort. I can arrange protection, Reeves said. 24-hour surveillance. Officers in the house if needed. We can make this as secure as possible. And we can file for a restraining order, Simone added, entering the room. Against Briggs and anyone connected to him. Violation would mean immediate arrest. Lorraine nodded. Then do all that. But Kendra, you need to make a choice. Not based on fear. Based on what you know is right. After securing Lorraine's house and arranging for protective detail, they returned to Simone's apartment. It was late, nearly midnight, but sleep felt impossible. Kendra sat at the window, staring out at the city lights, trying to untangle the knot of emotions in her chest. Her phone rang. Officer Holloway. Ms. Malik, I heard about what happened to your grandmother. I'm sorry. Thank you. I wanted you to know. I'm hearing things. Through the department. There's a group of officers, friends of Briggs, who are angry about the conviction. They're talking about ways to make this go away. Kendra's stomach tightened. What kind of ways? I don't know specifics, but I wanted to warn you. These aren't good people, and they're not going to stop just because the trial is over. So what do I do? A long pause. You do what you've been doing. You stand your ground. Because if you don't, they'll keep doing this to other people. And eventually, someone's going to get seriously hurt. His voice was quiet. I should have stood up to Briggs years ago. Should have reported him. Should have done something. But I didn't, and I have to live with that. Don't make the same mistake I did. After he hung up, Kendra sat in the silence, weighing everything. The threats. The conviction. Her grandmother's courage. The other women who had testified. The countless others who hadn't. Her phone buzzed. The group chat with Tamara, Maria, and Donna. Tamara, just heard about your grandmother. Are you okay? Maria, this is getting scary. Maybe we should all take a step back? Donna, I understand being scared. But if we quit now, what was the point of any of this? Kendra stared at the messages, then typed. Can we meet? Tomorrow morning? I need to talk to all of you. The responses came quickly. Yes from all three. They met at the community center, the same place where they had first gathered. But the atmosphere was different now. Heavier. The trial had taken its toll on all of them. Maria looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. Donna seemed older, the weight of her testimony visible in her posture. Even Tamara, strong Tamara, looked worn down. My son asked me if it was worth it, Donna said after they had settled around the table. Asked if putting myself through all that pain was worth a partial conviction. What did you tell him? Kendra asked. I told him I didn't know yet. That I wouldn't know until I saw what came next. Donna looked at each of them. So what has come next? Do we appeal the not guilty verdicts? Do we keep fighting? Or do we take the win we got and move on? I can't keep fighting, Maria said quietly. I'm sorry. I know that's not what you want to hear. But I can't do it anymore. The trial broke something in me. Having my life picked apart, being called a liar in front of everyone, watching him walk out of that courtroom not guilty on most charges. She wiped her eyes. I gave everything I had. I don't have anything left. I understand, Tamara said gently. Nobody's judging you. I'm judging myself. I feel like I'm abandoning you all. But I have to think about my mental health. My life. I can't keep living in fear. Then don't, Kendra said. Maria, you stood up when it mattered. You told your truth. That's enough. That's more than enough. Maria looked at her with grateful, tear-filled eyes. Thank you. What about you two? Kendra looked at Tamara and Donna. Where are you at? Donna was quiet for a long moment. I'm tired. God, I'm so tired. But I'm also angry. Angry that we gave them everything, and they still couldn't convict him on all charges. Angry that the system protected him just enough that he got away with part of what he did. She paused. But I don't know if I have it in me to go through another trial. Another round of having my life examined and my motives questioned. Tamara nodded slowly. I feel the same. But I also keep thinking about all the messages I've gotten. All the women who said our testimony gave them courage. Who said they're going to report what happened to them now. Who said they finally feel like someone believes them. She looked at Kendra. That has to mean something, right? It means everything, Kendra said. Even if we don't appeal, even if this is where it ends, we change something. We prove that it's possible to stand up to someone like Briggs and survive. Is that enough? Maria asked. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. Kendra touched the bracelet on her wrist. Strength. But I think we get to decide what enough looks like. We get to decide when we've given all we can give. Simone had been sitting quietly in the corner, listening. Now she spoke up. Can I offer a legal perspective? Please, Donna said. Appealing the not guilty verdicts would be an uphill battle. Double jeopardy prevents us from retrying him on the same charges. What we could do is appeal the sentence on the civil rights conviction, argue that it should be harsher. We could also pursue federal charges, since he was acting under color of law. That's a different jurisdiction, different standards. How long would all that take? Tamara asked. Years. And there's no guarantee of success. The conviction we have is significant. Briggs is a felon. He can never be a police officer again. He'll likely face prison time. That's real accountability, even if it's not perfect. Kendra felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She looked at these women, her sisters in survival, and saw the same exhaustion she felt reflected in their faces. I think, she said slowly, that we've fought enough. I think we've done what we set out to do. Briggs was convicted. He's going to prison. He'll never wear a badge again. That's what we wanted. That's justice, even if it's messy and incomplete. You're sure? Tamara asked. No. But I'm also not willing to sacrifice more of our lives, more of our peace, chasing a perfect outcome that might not exist. Kendra looked at each of them. We stood up. We told the truth. We held him accountable. That's enough. That has to be enough. Maria let out a breath she seemed to have been holding for days. Thank God. I was so afraid you'd want to keep fighting, and I'd be the only one who wanted to stop. We're all tired, Donna said. And that's okay. We're allowed to be tired. They sat together for a while longer, not talking about the case or Briggs or any of it. Just talking about their lives, their plans, what came next. Maria was going back to school full-time, determined to become a paralegal so she could help others like them. Donna was taking a sabbatical from teaching, going to travel with her husband, reclaim some joy. Tamara was starting a support group for women who had experienced police violence. What about you? Tamara asked Kendra. What's next? I don't know. Maybe go back to school like I said. Or maybe just spend some time with my grandmother, help her with her garden, figure out who I am when I'm not in survival mode. Kendra smiled slightly. I've been fighting for so long. The Taliban. Then Briggs. Then the trial. Maybe it's time to just be still for a while. That sounds perfect, Maria said. When they left the community center, they hugged goodbye with the understanding that this chapter was closing. They would stay in touch, would remain friends, but the intensity of what they had shared was ending. They could finally start healing. Simone drove Kendra back to the apartment. You made the right choice, she said. Did I? It doesn't feel right. It feels like giving up. It's not giving up. It's choosing yourself. Choosing your peace. There's nothing wrong with that. Simone glanced at her. You've been at war for years, Kendra. Combat overseas. Combat here. You're allowed to lay down your weapons. At the apartment, Kendra found a package waiting. No return address. Her heart started pounding, fear flooding through her. But Simone had already had security screen it. It's safe, she said. Open it. Inside was a handwritten letter on expensive stationery. Kendra unfolded it, read the elegant script. Dear Ms. Malik, you don't know me, but I know you. My name is Margaret Briggs. I was married to Warren for 22 years before I finally left him 8 years ago. I saw your trial. I watched your testimony. And I wanted you to know that I believe you. I believe every word you said. Because I lived with that man's violence for over 2 decades. He wasn't always like this. Or maybe he was, and I just didn't see it. But after our daughter died, something broke in him. He became cruel, controlling, violent. And when I tried to leave the first time, he told me the same thing he probably told you. That no one would believe me. That he was a police officer, and I was just a hysterical woman. Eventually, I found the courage to leave anyway. But I never reported him. Never pressed charges. I was too afraid. And I've regretted that cowardice every day since. Watching you fight back, watching you refuse to be silenced, gave me something I didn't know I needed. Hope. Hope that maybe the world is changing. That maybe women like us don't have to suffer in silence anymore. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your truth. And please know that you didn't just stop him from hurting others. You also helped heal someone you've never met. With gratitude and respect. Margaret. Kendra read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. She had been so focused on the charges that didn't stick, on the partial victory, on everything that felt like failure. But this woman, this stranger, was telling her that it mattered. That standing up had ripple effects she couldn't see. She showed the letter to Simone, who read it with her own tears forming. This is why we do this work, Simone said softly. Not for the perfect verdict. Not for the complete victory. But for the people we help along the way. The ones who find their own courage because they saw yours. That night, Kendra video called her grandmother. Lorraine answered from her kitchen, flour on her hands, in the middle of making biscuits. "How are you, Gram?" "I'm good, baby. Got 2 officers sitting in a car outside. They're sweet boys. I made them lunch." She smiled. "But enough about me. How are you? You look lighter somehow." "I am lighter. I decided to stop fighting. To accept the verdict we got and move forward." Lorraine studied her through the screen. "And you're at peace with that?" "I'm getting there. I think I needed permission to stop. To admit that I've given everything I can give." "You have. You've given more than anyone should have to." Lorraine's expression was proud and sad at the same time. "But you did it, baby. You stood up to a man who thought he was untouchable, and you proved he wasn't. That's going to matter for a long time." Margaret Briggs sent me a letter. "His ex-wife?" "Yeah." She said watching me fight helped her heal from what he did to her. Kendra's voice caught. "I didn't even know I was helping anyone except maybe the other women who testified. But she said it mattered. Of course it mattered. Everything we do matters. Every stand we take, every truth we tell, every time we choose courage over comfort, it matters." Lorraine smiled. "Now come home. Come help me with this garden. Lord knows these tomatoes are getting out of control." "I will. Soon. I just need to tie up some loose ends here first." After the call ended, Kendra sat with the letter, with her grandmother's words, with everything that had happened. And for the first time since this all began, she felt something she hadn't expected: acceptance. Not of what Briggs had done, not of a system that let him get away with some of it, but acceptance that she had done everything she could, that she had fought with everything she had, that the outcome, however imperfect, was still meaningful. Her phone buzzed. A text from Detective Reeves. "Sentencing is set for next month. Judge Martinez has discretion from 2 to 10 years. We're pushing for maximum. Thought you'd want to know. 2 to 10 years. Briggs would go to prison. Not for as long as he deserved maybe, but for something. For enough." She texted back, "Thank you. For everything." His response came quickly. "You did the hard part. All I did was my job. Be proud of yourself, Kendra. What you did was extraordinary." She wanted to believe that. Wanted to feel proud instead of just relieved. Maybe in time she would. Maybe once the dust settled and the fear faded and she could look back on all of this with some distance, she would see it the way others did. As extraordinary. As meaningful. As worth it. For now, she just felt tired. Bone deep tired. The kind of exhaustion that came from carrying something heavy for too long. But she also felt free. Free to put it down. Free to walk away. Free to start rebuilding a life that wasn't defined by fighting. Simone ordered takeout and they ate together in comfortable silence, watching mindless television, being normal for the first time in months. When Simone's phone rang, she looked at the screen and smiled. "It's the ACLU. They want to use your case as part of a larger initiative for police reform." Interested, Kendra thought about it. About using her story to help change systems. About turning trauma into advocacy. It was tempting. Noble even. But she shook her head. "Tell them thank you. But I need to step back for a while. If they want to use the case, the trial transcripts, whatever, that's fine. But I can't be the face of it. Not right now. I'll let them know." Simone hung up, turned back to her. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think you're one of the bravest people I've ever met. And I think you're about to discover that life after survival can be pretty beautiful." Kendra smiled. It felt strange, smiling. Like a muscle she had forgotten how to use. But it also felt good. Natural. Like maybe she was starting to remember how to be more than just a fighter. That night she slept deeply for the first time in weeks. No nightmares. No waking in cold sweats. Just rest. Just peace. And when she woke the next morning to sunshine streaming through the windows, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not hope that everything would be perfect. Not hope that justice would always prevail or that bad people would always face consequences. But hope that she could survive this. That she could heal. That she could build a life worth living on the other side of trauma. And sometimes, that was enough. 3 months later, Kendra stood in her grandmother's garden, her hands deep in rich soil, helping plant a new row of tomatoes. The Virginia sun was warm on her back, and somewhere in the distance, a neighbor's wind chimes sang in the breeze. It was the kind of moment that felt sacred in its simplicity. "You're doing it wrong," Lorraine said, though her voice was gentle. "You have to give them space to breathe. Room to grow. Like people," Kendra said, repositioning the seedling. Exactly like people. Lorraine smiled, wiped her hands on her apron. You look different. Lighter. I feel different. Kendra sat back on her heels, looked around at the garden. In the 3 months since the trial ended, she had spent more time here than anywhere else. Learning to be still. Learning to let her body remember what peace felt like. Thank you for letting me hide out here. You're not hiding. You're healing. There's a difference. Lorraine joined her on the ground, something she rarely did given her knees. And for what it's worth, I think you made the right choice. Sometimes knowing when to stop fighting is just as important as knowing when to start. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, the rhythmic motion of planting soothing in a way Kendra was learning to appreciate. Her therapist had suggested gardening, said something about connecting with the earth, about creation versus destruction. Kendra had been skeptical at first, but her grandmother's garden had become her sanctuary. Her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it, had gotten better about not being constantly available, but something made her check. It was a text from Simone. Sentencing today? Thought you'd want to know. Judge gave him 8 years. With credit for time served, he'll do about 7. 7 years. Warren Briggs would spend 7 years in prison. It wasn't everything. Wasn't the maximum. But it was something. It was real consequences in a world that often provided none. Kendra texted back, "Thank you for letting me know." Simone responded, "Are you okay?" "I think so. It feels complete. Like a chapter actually closing." "Good. You deserve that closure. Call me later?" "Will do." Lorraine had been watching her. News about Briggs? Sentencing. 8 years. How do you feel about that? Kendra considered the question. 3 months ago, she would have been angry it wasn't more. Would have felt cheated. But now, with distance and therapy and time spent in this garden learning that growth took patience, she felt something different. "I feel like it's enough," she said. "Not perfect, but enough." "Then it is." Lorraine squeezed her shoulder. "Now help me with these beans. They're getting stubborn." That afternoon, after the garden work was done and Lorraine was napping, Kendra drove into town. She had an appointment, one she had been putting off, but finally felt ready for. The community center looked the same as it always had, but when she walked into the main room, she found it transformed. About 20 women sat in a circle, ranging in age from early 20s to late 60s. At the front, leading the discussion, was Tamara. "Kendra." Tamara smiled, genuine warmth in her expression. "Everyone, this is the woman I told you about. The one who inspired me to start this group." The women turned to look at her, and Kendra saw in their eyes what she had seen in her own mirror for months. Pain, fear, determination. These were survivors. Women who had experienced police violence or misconduct and were trying to find their way through it. "Hi," Kendra said, suddenly feeling shy. "I'm just here to observe if that's okay. I'm not ready to speak yet." "That's more than okay," Tamara said. "Grab a seat wherever." Kendra sat in the circle and listened as the women shared their stories. Some were recent. Some were years old, wounds that had never properly healed because there had been nowhere to take them. But here, in this room, they could speak their truth without judgment, could be believed without question. After the meeting ended, Tamara pulled her aside. "Thank you for coming. I know it's not easy. How are you doing?" "Really?" Kendra asked. "Better. Some days are harder than others. But running this group, helping these women, it gives me purpose. Makes what we went through mean something." Tamara paused. "Maria's doing well too. She's almost done with her paralegal certification. And Donna sent me a postcard from Italy last week. She and her husband are having the time of their lives." "That's good. They deserve happiness." "So do you." Tamara studied her. "Are you finding it?" "Happiness. I'm finding peace. I think happiness comes after that." Kendra smiled. "But I'm getting there. My therapist says I'm making progress." "Good. Because you deserve more than just survival, Kendra. You deserve a full life." They hugged goodbye, and Kendra felt grateful for this woman who had become not just an ally but a friend. Someone who understood without needing explanation. Someone who had walked the same dark path and emerged on the other side. On the drive back to her grandmother's house, Kendra's phone rang. "Officer Holloway." "Jacob," she said, having moved to first names over the past few months of occasional contact. "How are you?" "Good. Better. I wanted you to know, I left the department." Kendra nearly swerved. "You what?" "I resigned. Couldn't do it anymore. Not after everything with Briggs." Not after seeing how the system protected him for so long. His voice was calm, resolved. I'm going back to school. Social work. Figure I can do more good helping people than policing them. Wow. That's a big change. It is. But it's the right one. And I wanted to thank you. For having the courage I didn't have. For standing up when I stood by. You changed my life, Kendra. Made me see that being a good person matters more than being a good cop. After the call ended, Kendra sat in her grandmother's driveway for a long moment, processing. The ripples kept spreading. The case kept changing lives she never knew about. It was humbling and overwhelming and strangely beautiful. Inside, she found Lorraine in the kitchen making dinner. The smell of fried chicken and collard greens filled the house, reminding Kendra of every Sunday dinner from her childhood. Home smells. Safety smells. You have a good day? Lorraine asked, not looking up from the stove. Yeah. I went to Tamara's support group. And Holloway called. He left the police department. The officer who testified for you? Yeah. Said I inspired him. Kendra leaned against the counter. It's strange, Graham. I didn't set out to inspire anyone. I just wanted justice. But somehow it became bigger than that. That's usually how it works. You take one step forward, and suddenly you realize you've started a march. Lorraine turned off the stove, faced her granddaughter. You know what your grandfather used to say? He said the measure of a life isn't what you accomplish for yourself. It's what you make possible for others. That's beautiful. He was beautiful. Stubborn as hell, but beautiful. Lorraine smiled at the memory. And he'd be so proud of you right now. Not just for what you did with Briggs, but for how you're healing. For choosing yourself. They ate dinner together on the back porch, watching the sun set over the garden they had worked on that morning. The tomato plants were already reaching toward the light, determined to grow despite being so recently transplanted. Kendra thought about that. About being transplanted. About putting down roots in new soil after being torn up from old ground. It was painful and disorienting, but it was also how things grew. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. She almost ignored it, wanted to stay present in this moment with her grandmother. But Lorraine shooed her away. Check it. I'm going to get dessert anyway. The email was from the Veterans Affairs office. She had applied for a position as a peer counselor weeks ago, helping other veterans transition to civilian life. The job would let her use her experience, both military and personal, to help people who were struggling with their own trauma. We are pleased to offer you the position. Kendra read the email twice, then a third time. A job. Purpose beyond just surviving. A way to turn everything she had been through into something that helped others. When Lorraine came back with pie, she found Kendra smiling at her phone. Good news. Really good news. I got the job. At the VA, helping other veterans. Lorraine set down the pie, pulled her granddaughter into a tight hug. Oh baby, that's wonderful. That's exactly what you need. Purpose. Community. A reason to get up in the morning that isn't just getting through the day. I'm scared, Kendra admitted. Scared I'm not ready. That I haven't healed enough to help other people heal. Nobody's ever completely healed. We're all just works in progress. Lorraine held her at arm's length, looked her in the eye. But you know what broken people need most? Someone who understands. Someone who's been in the dark and found their way out. You're that person, Kendra. You're exactly what they need. That night, Kendra called Simone to share the news. Her lawyer-turned-friend was thrilled, insisted they celebrate when Kendra came back to the city to finalize paperwork. I'm proud of you, Simone said. You could have let what happened destroy you. Instead, you're using it to build something new. I'm trying. Some days are harder than others. That's life. But you're showing up anyway. That's what courage looks like. Simone paused. Oh, I almost forgot. I got a call from a publisher. They want to do a book about the case. Your story. Are you interested? Kendra's first instinct was to say no. To keep her story private. But then she thought about Margaret Briggs's letter. About the women in Tamara's support group. About all the people who might need to hear that standing up was possible. Maybe, she said. But not right now. Give me a year. Let me get stable in this new job. Let me finish healing. Then I'll think about telling the story. Fair enough. The offer will be there when you're ready. After hanging up, Kendra walked out to the garden. The moon was full, casting silver light over the rows of vegetables. She could see the tomato plants they had put in that morning, their leaves already perking up, adjusting to their new home. She thought about Warren Briggs in a prison cell tonight. About the 7 years stretching out before him. She didn't feel triumphant about it. Didn't feel vindictive. She just felt like a chapter had ended. Like a weight she had been carrying had finally been set down. Her phone buzzed one more time. A group text from Maria, 1-year anniversary of the checkpoint stop. Just wanted to say I'm grateful for all of you. For the courage you gave me. For the friendship. Love you all. Donna responded, love you too. We survived. We're surviving. That's everything. Tamara, more than surviving. We're thriving. Each in our own way. Kendra typed, thank you for walking this road with me. I couldn't have done it alone. Maria, none of us could have. That's the point. We're stronger together. Kendra smiled at the screen, then turned it off. Put it in her pocket. Decided to be present in this moment. In this garden, under this moon. She heard the screen door open, turned to see her grandmother shuffling out in her house shoes. Couldn't sleep? Lorraine asked. Just thinking. About how much has changed. A year ago, I was just trying to get home to visit you. Now I'm starting a new job. Building a new life. Becoming someone I didn't know I could be. Lorraine came to stand beside her, both of them looking out at the garden. You know what the secret is? To growing things. What? You have to let go of what you thought they'd be and love what they become. Those tomatoes? They're not going to grow exactly the way I plan. They're going to reach toward whatever light they can find. Take whatever shape the wind and rain and sun make them. She paused. People are the same way. We can't control how we grow. We just have to trust that we're growing toward light. When did you get so wise? I've always been this wise. You just weren't ready to hear it before. Lorraine patted her hand. But you're ready now. And that's beautiful. They stood there for a while longer, grandmother and granddaughter, 2 generations of strong women who had learned that strength came in many forms. In fighting when necessary. In healing when possible. In knowing the difference between the two. Eventually, Lorraine went back inside, but Kendra stayed. She wanted to mark this moment somehow. The end of one chapter and the beginning of another. The night the weight lifted. The night she chose to believe that better days were possible. She pulled out her phone, opened her notes app, and started writing. Not a legal statement. Not testimony. Just thoughts. Feelings. Everything she had learned over the past year about survival and strength, and what it meant to keep going when the world felt too heavy. 1 year ago tonight, a man put his hands on my throat and thought he could break me. He thought the badge gave him power over my body, my voice, my truth. He was wrong. I'm not going to pretend the past year has been easy. It hasn't. There have been days I wanted to quit. Days I wondered if fighting back was worth it. Days I felt like the weight of it all would crush me. But I'm still here. Still standing. Still believing that truth matters. That justice matters. That the fight for both is never wasted even when the victory is imperfect. To anyone reading this who has experienced something similar, I believe you. Your pain is real. Your fear is valid. And your courage in surviving another day is extraordinary. You don't have to fight the way I did. You don't have to go public or testify or put yourself through trauma again. Your healing can look however you need it to look. But if you do choose to fight, know that you're not alone. Know that there are people who will stand with you. Know that speaking truth to power matters, even when power tries to shout you down. And know that on the other side of survival, there is life. Real life. The kind where you can plant gardens and laugh with friends and imagine a future that isn't defined by what was done to you. I'm building that life now. One day at a time. One tomato plant at a time. One moment of peace at a time. And if I can do it, anyone can. She saved the note. Thought about sharing it someday when she was ready. When the wounds had scarred over enough that touching them didn't make her bleed. But for now, it was enough to have written it. To have acknowledged how far she had come. To have chosen hope over bitterness. Healing over anger. Life over mere survival. Inside the house, she could hear her grandmother humming an old gospel song. The kind Lorraine sang when she was content. The sound wrapped around Kendra like a blanket, warm and familiar and safe. She touched the bracelet on her wrist. Strength. It had become more than a reminder. It had become a promise. A commitment to keep showing up, keep healing, keep growing toward whatever light she could find. 6 months later, Kendra stood in front of a group of veterans at the VA, leading her first support group session. Her hands were steadier than she expected. Her voice was clear. My name is Kendra, she began. And I know what it's like to come home from war only to find a different kind of battlefield waiting. I know what it's like to feel like you don't belong anywhere. To struggle with nightmares and hypervigilance and wondering if the person you were before will ever come back. She looked around the circle at faces that reflected her own experience back at her. Young and old, men and women, all of them carrying wounds that weren't always visible, but were always real. I can't promise you that healing is easy, she continued. I can't tell you that one day you'll wake up and everything will be fine. But I can tell you that healing is possible, that you can build a life on the other side of trauma, that you're worth the work it takes to get there. After the session, a young woman approached her. She was maybe 23, with scars on her arms and eyes that had seen too much too soon. Thank you, the woman said quietly. For being honest. For not pretending everything's okay. Everything's not okay, Kendra said gently. But it can get better. Are you willing to do the work? I think so. I'm scared, but I think so. Being scared is normal. Doing it anyway is courage. Kendra pulled out a business card, wrote her personal cell number on the back. If you need someone to talk to between sessions, call me. I mean it. The woman took the card with trembling hands, like it was something precious. You really mean that? I really do. Because someone did the same for me once. And it saved my life. That night, Kendra had dinner with Simone, Tamara, Maria, and Donna. It had become a monthly tradition, these 5 women gathering to celebrate how far they'd come and support each other through whatever was still hard. They met at the Italian restaurant where they'd had their first normal dinner together. It felt full circle somehow. Starting and returning. Growing and remembering. I have news, Maria announced after they'd ordered wine. I passed the bar exam. I'm officially a paralegal. The table erupted in cheers and congratulations. Maria blushed, but looked proud. Looked like someone who had reclaimed something important. And, she continued, I got a job. At a firm that specializes in civil rights cases. I'm going to help people like us. People who need someone to fight for them. That's incredible, Kendra said, raising her glass. To Maria, who turned her pain into purpose. They all drank to that. Donna shared that she and her husband were planning to retire early. Life's too short, she said. And I've spent enough of it being afraid. We're buying an RV, going to see the country, going to remember what it feels like to just live. Tamara's support group had grown to over 50 regular members. We're looking into making it a nonprofit, she said. Getting funding. Expanding to other cities. Making sure that what we built here can help people everywhere. What about you? Maria asked Kendra. How's the new job? It's hard. Listening to people's trauma every day. But it's also rewarding. Seeing them start to heal. Knowing I played some small part in that. Kendra smiled. I think I found my calling. Helping other veterans find their way home. Simone had been quieter than usual. Now she set down her wine glass and looked at each of them. I need to tell you something, she said. I've been offered a judgeship. Civil court. And I'm going to take it. More celebrations. More toasts. But underneath the joy, Kendra felt something bittersweet. Simone had been her anchor through everything. The thought of her moving on felt like another ending. As if reading her mind, Simone reached across the table and squeezed Kendra's hand. This isn't goodbye. This is just the next chapter. For all of us. I know. It's just been you and me for so long. And now it's you and your purpose. You and your healing. You and the life you're building. Simone smiled. I'm so proud of you, Kendra. You came to me broken and scared, and now look at you. You're whole. You're strong. You're exactly who you were meant to be. The dinner stretched late into the evening, filled with laughter and memories and plans for the future. When it finally ended, and they said their goodbyes, Kendra felt grateful. Not just for these women, but for the journey that had brought them together. Driving back to her grandmother's house, where she still spent more nights than in her own apartment, Kendra thought about how much had changed in 18 months. How she had gone from a woman just trying to get home to someone who was helping others find their way. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, old fears surfacing. But she had promised herself she wouldn't live in fear anymore. Hello. Is this Kendra Malik? A woman's voice, nervous. Yes. Who's this? My name is Jessica Carr. You don't know me, but your case. What you did. It gave me courage. And I want to report what happened to me. What Warren Briggs did to me 5 years ago. Kendra pulled over, needed to give this woman her full attention. Jessica, I'm so glad you called. And I'm so sorry for what you went through. Is it too late? To report? To get justice? I don't know. But I know someone who can help you figure that out. Her name is Simone Hawthorne. She's the best lawyer I know. And she specializes in cases like yours. Like ours. She gave Jessica Simone's contact information, talked with her for another 20 minutes, just listening. Just being present for someone who needed to know she wasn't alone. When the call ended, Kendra sat in her car, engine idling, and let herself feel the full weight of that moment. Jessica Carr was coming forward. After 5 years of silence. Because she had seen what was possible when someone fought back. The ripples were still spreading. At her grandmother's house, Lorraine was waiting up despite the late hour. Good dinner. Really good. And Graham? Jessica Carr called. Briggs's victim from 5 years ago. She's ready to come forward. Lorraine's eyes filled with tears. Oh baby, that's what it was all for. That right there. Yeah. Kendra sank into the couch beside her grandmother. It is. They sat together in the quiet, the house settling around them. Outside, the garden grew in the darkness, reaching toward tomorrow's sun. Inside, 2 women who had fought their own battles, and one sat in the peace they had earned. Kendra's phone buzzed one last time. A text from an unknown number. Thank you for your courage. Because of you, I reported my assault today. For the first time in 3 years, I feel like maybe I can heal. You changed my life. She showed it to Lorraine, who smiled through her tears. You did it, baby. You really did it. We did it, Kendra corrected. All of us together. That night, Kendra slept deeply, peacefully, without nightmares. And when she woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through her childhood bedroom window, she felt something she hadn't felt in longer than she could remember. Joy. Not the absence of pain. Not the end of struggle. But genuine, full-hearted joy at being alive. At having survived. At having built a life on the other side of trauma that was rich and full and meaningful. She got up, put on her running shoes, and went for a jog through her grandmother's neighborhood. The same streets she had walked as a child. The same houses. The same trees. But everything looked different now. Brighter. More possible. She ran past the house where her grandfather had lived before he died. Past the church where her grandmother still sang in the choir. Past the elementary school where she had learned to read. And she thought about how all of it, all the history and pain and growth, had led her here. To this moment. To this life. To this version of herself that was stronger and kinder and more whole than she had ever imagined possible. When she got back, sweaty and breathless, Lorraine was in the garden. Of course she was. The woman practically lived out here. Come help me with these peppers, Lorraine called. They're getting too big for their steaks. Kendra joined her, kneeling in the dirt, working side by side with the woman who had taught her everything important. How to stand up. How to fight back. How to heal. How to grow. Graham, she said after a while. Thank you. For everything. For being strong when I couldn't be. For teaching me that courage comes in different forms. For showing me that healing is possible. Lorraine stopped working, turned to face her granddaughter with soil-stained hands and tears in her eyes. Baby, you taught me just as much. You showed me that each generation has to fight in their own way. That the battles never really end, but neither does the strength to face them. She cupped Kendra's face. And you showed me that even when they try to break us, we can always choose to grow instead. They hugged there in the garden, surrounded by life they had planted together, and Kendra felt complete. Not perfect, not without scars, but complete in a way that mattered. The checkpoint was 18 months behind her. Warren Briggs was in prison. The trial was over. The fight was won, or at least fought to a draw. But more importantly, Kendra had found her way back to herself. Had discovered that survival wasn't just about living through something. It was about choosing to thrive in spite of it. And as she stood in her grandmother's garden, hands in the earth, face to the sun, she made a promise to herself. She would keep growing. Keep healing. Keep helping others find their way out of the dark. Because that's what warriors did. Not just fight, but build, create, plant seeds, and tend them carefully until they bloomed. That night, for the first time since the checkpoint, Kendra dreamed about something other than that moment. She dreamed about a garden that stretched as far as she could see. Tomatoes and peppers and beans and flowers, all growing wild and beautiful and free. And in the dream, she wasn't alone. Tamara and Maria and Donna were there. Simone and her grandmother. Jessica Carr and the young woman from the VA, Officer Holloway. All the people whose lives had intersected with hers. All of them tending the garden together. Building something beautiful from soil that had been salted by pain. When she woke, the dream stayed with her. A vision of what was possible when survivors stopped just surviving and started creating. when trauma became testimony, when pain transformed into purpose. She picked up her phone, opened her notes, and added one more line to what she'd written that night in the garden. This is not the end of my story. This is the beginning of everything I'm going to become. And she believed it. What's your biggest takeaway from Kendra's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us all that courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about choosing to stand up anyway.
Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this one, then you'll absolutely love the next. It's even crazier and more captivating than you can imagine. So go ahead and click the video showing right here on your screen, and I'll see you in the next story.